Welcome, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. Um, so I wish I could say the same. This is the third. This is the third time this year that I've gotten sick. And I don't know if at one point I had COVID. Seems like I might have, but I didn't have the test. But my test came in, the home tests, and I took one today. And I'm happy to say that it's negative, and it's great because I don't want to have to quarantine again. And um, so that turned out to be really convenient because I probably would have quarantined anyway if I didn't have the test. Uh, and I so I went ahead and I took the test and it came out negative. I've got a bunch more too. So yeah, I realized, why am I getting sick so much? Well, I've been slacking, like really slacking on taking care of myself lately. I like normally I go to the gym all the time. I try to eat right because it feels stupid to go to the gym and not eat right. It seems completely and totally counterproductive, just pointless. Um, so uh so yeah, you could tell that I'm just like uh so but I feel like having that lifestyle and then dipping my toes slightly in my previous lifestyle, uh my body at my age and having been used to taking care of myself, it's just not agreeing with me. That's what I think is happening. I think my body is just going, dude, you can't do this shit anymore. Uh like I have a very, very high tolerance for whiskey. Uh and so, I'm like, this is fine. But then I realized, wow, uh, man, no, this isn't fine anymore. Just because you're not throwing up, just because you're not getting the spins, just because you're not blacking out, it's that doesn't mean that your body's not going to go, dude. It's time. It's time. Take your ass back to the gym. Cut it out. So yeah. So my body, I think, is just paying for my own, because I have to hold myself accountable for that. I think my body is just paying for my own abuse to it after getting so used to treating it so good. Um, Cherry, shut up. Uh, well, it's funny though, Pendar. I'm in the best shape of my life since my early 20s. And and but I think, like I said, that's my body going, okay, that's the price you pay, you know, like you can last longer on a treadmill or an elliptical bike or a stair stepper. You could do that now that you're in this good shape. But what you can't do is do things and put nasty shit into your body like whiskey and McDonald's and Chick-fil-A all the time for, days at a time, for days, little day benders. You can't do that anymore. So, yeah. So I decided to take a few days just because YouTube was getting just a little bit crazy. Doesn't seem like it's getting any better. I just needed to kind of, you know, uh, I needed to kind of, reset, I guess. I think we all need to do that from time to time. So I just kind of stayed off YouTube, watched a bunch of movies, chilled, it's nice. Except for getting sick from it. So so yeah, it's not, yeah, my body is just not used to not being productive. So it's time to get back to it. Um yeah, that's totally what happened. Um so Oh yeah, don't forget we got that. We still got that Dumpy Dump and Beater Bunch merch. That is going to charity. All of the profits are going to charity. So, um, yeah, it's gotten, like the mass level of ignorance is just discouraging. You know what I mean? Like when it's one thing when you come across one ignorant person. When you're having one conversation with an ignorant person, it's to a level very frustrating. It doesn't have to be super frustrating. It's all in how you take it, but it's there's still some level of wow. But when it comes at you on a mass level, you're like, what? um, and until now, there were no updates on the Summer Wells case, and this as of yesterday. Now this is the thing. I did send Benny a link, um, and he said that he would be able to make it up here. Hopefully he does, and soon. And he can explain to you, because I texted him. I got just a little idea here of what's going on here. So there's a lot of you in my chat that already know a lot more than this, more about this than I do. But you guys know that it's important to me to deliver information responsibly, and I have not collected enough details. And listening to, and maybe it's just my ears, but listening to some of Benny's lives from last night and the phone calls he was on, I had a really hard time being able to hear. I could hear what he was saying, but I couldn't hear what Candace was saying on the other end. And then at one point, I wasn't even able to hear or tell who the other person was. But so I invited Benny up here because what I was not about to do was go around and get a bunch of opinions from other YouTube channels and then start making my own conclusion here. Uh, I figured I would go to the source myself, who happens to be Blood Money Benny Keys, and I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to agree to join me here. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, brother? Thank you for having me, Will.
Thank you for being here. It's very appreciative, because I want to fully understand exactly what is going on here. Just start from the beginning.
Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna fire up through the computer so that I can put the microphone on. Just give me 30 seconds. Is that cool?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm talking
I'm
to
gonna jump
chat.
out. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So right now, um, like I said, I figured the best thing to do was get the information straight from Benny, since he is the source of this information. We all know that Benny has been very, very active and interactive with both Don and Candace. So we I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't about to just get some other YouTuber's opinion on their perception and interpretation of what Benny had released to us. So I'm really, really happy that Benny agreed to come on here and talk to us all. Sorry, I'm looking at chat right now. Benny's back.
Hey, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you for being here again.
So, you said just kind of start from the bottom.
Yeah. As far as this update goes, because I all I know is there's a phone that may have information that could help us understand what happened to Summer. Possibly, we don't know what it is, but for some reason it's Don's phone, and for some reason Candace is in possession of it and refuses to turn it over to law enforcement. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, in terms of not being cooperative and turning it over, She's only been uncooperative towards me that I know definitively.
Okay. So it's possible she actually did turn it over to law enforcement.
She hasn't turned it over yet, but
Oh,
yeah. So there's another issue with the phone, in terms of how it looks. When it was returned to the Wells, it was returned inside of a plastic bag, um, which in itself is somewhat of a problem, I would say, right?
well, it's a little weird. Yeah. Like who? Wait. Who gave it to them in a plastic bag?
Sandman.
Okay. Okay, that's weird. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so okay, so how did you come about this information as far as
Well, the PIs that work for the Wells in the back, they reached out to me, and we talked on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week. And he reached out to me, and he said that I had ruined the case. And
wow.
I said, what do you mean, Chris? I ruined the case? And he's like, yeah, with you downloading the phone and then accessing the camera with the audio activated, you've unlawfully surveilled, and you've run forensics on this phone that you shouldn't have. And I said, whoa, I've done none of those things.
I was gonna say, I was like, did you do those things?
No. And that was what raised my spidey senses. Like, there's something going on with the phone. The camera things, the camera
So was
context.
that definitely done though? Like, can the PI like look at the phone and be like, somebody did this shit? It happened for sure.
The PI better not look at that phone like that. He better never touch that phone. If that phone is going to be touched, it needs to be touched by the TBI.
Okay, so explain to me if you can what the pattern of possession of this phone is
Okay.
from where it was to where it is.
So Mr. Wells, on the 7th of February, he commuted to the court to receive sentence. Upon receiving sentence, he turned the phone over to the Sandman, which in turn the Sandman took it home and had it in his possession, roughly for the better part of 2 weeks.
Okay, so we're talking after Summer's disappearance, well after.
Yeah, I mean, just in February when Don just went to jail, it was
okay. This is making me understand things a little bit better.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. So the phone goes to the Sandman, and the Sandman takes it home, and he downloads the content from the phone under the guise that. And you know what? In Sandman's defense, it very well may have been just under the guise that he wanted the media, being the pictures and video that Don had taken. Subsequently, by putting that backup pack on his computer, he officially has the only copy that can be garnered. Will, to be honest with you, like, do I think Don would turn his phone over? No. That's why he didn't leave the phone in the jail with him. I believe he was afraid to go through it.
Yeah, that's not a good look at all.
No. So I tried to appeal to Candace and Tim's subtleties and say, listen, you have got to turn this information in. We know the power of forensical data on these devices. You have to turn it in. And of course, she nonchalantly, well, I'm not going to breach my husband's privacy. And of course, the Sandman, his rebuttal is, well, if they ask me for it, I'll give it to them. And so I wanted to culture an environment where I felt confident that someone was going to make sure they asked him about that backup.
Nice. Okay. So how do you know that he was handed back to Candace in a plastic bag from the Sandman?
From via Candace. She said it was given back to her about 2 weeks after Don got sentenced and put in jail.
So Sandman had this phone for 2 weeks between the time that it was given back to Candace and, well, I should say between the time it was given to Sandman during Don's sentencing or after Don's sentencing and Candace getting a hold of it. So 2 week gap where
Correct.
It was in Sandman's possession.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I mean, that could just mean that he's just a lazy fuck, you know.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean,
But
and that's a good, that's what I love about your insight, Will, is that it just because something looks a certain way doesn't necessarily make it
right,
nefarious right off the bat.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, but now I'm still saying it's not a good look.
It's not.
I'm just saying, but yeah, but I'm getting the feeling with the other things that I think I have an understanding of what's going on. Uh, it's, it's starting to make a little bit more sense, and it's making it look less of a good look.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yes, that the goodness is dissolving rapidly.
Right. Yeah. Now, like, so Candace has the phone, and we know. How do we know that she hasn't turned it over to LE yet?
Because I asked her about it 2-3 days ago. And I have recordings where she's like, no, there's been, no action taken on the phone. And I reiterated to her that please, at all costs, do not let anyone that is not qualified analyze that phone. Period. Period.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's really bad.
Because the only people that are qualified, and we've been saying, and she knows this.
She knows this.
She knows this because I heard her say it. I heard Don say it, both on this panel, both on this channel, to me directly. Leave it up to law enforcement. Let
That's
law
it.
enforcement do their job. And law enforcement are the only people that, as far as a court of law is concerned, the only people qualified to be analyzing that phone. Nobody
That's
else
it.
should be. Otherwise, it's tampering with evidence.
I
Period.
mean, absolutely. And we know that tampering with evidence is a huge felony. It's a Class C
In
felony.
the
You don't
case of
want
a
to get caught
missing
with-
girl,
Absolutely.
where the whole world is looking at you like you know something, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Like that's real bad.
For me, it was liberating, Will, because when I reached the stone wall, I was always looking for a stone wall. I was always maneuvering through the Wells stuff, trying to find a wall where I stopped. And I knew that wherever the wall was, that probably somewhere directly behind it would be the answer. And
Or
we
at
had
least the road to them, you know.
absolutely, sir,
Right.
absolutely. I can't fathom not wanting to run that thing in like the pigskin. Like you're trying to bring it in for the touchdown. Why are you not rushing it to the TBI as soon as you get the phone back?
Well, that's the funny thing too, and I'm glad you brought this up because there's there was people on YouTube. I don't even want to say their names, but people jumped all over this. Benny flipped on Candace. He flipped on her. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. You people, you people were the ones who created a Team Candace, Team Summer thing. Team,
Absolutely.
like you already decided that they did something to this child when you didn't have any information. Because I'm
Correct.
going to tell you, Benny, this is the first thing that makes me go, ooh. Now,
Yeah.
there's other stuff. There's other stuff that made me go,
Right.
but
That you could explain
that's
away.
not enough, right? You could easily explain it away,
Absolutely.
like easily. So, but you know, this is the first thing that's made me go, oh my god. And I have always, and I can speak for myself, but I've heard you say it because you and I have had several conversations on the subject. This has always just been about finding Summer.
That's it.
you
That's
know
it.
it's not like you became friends with these people because you just needed popular friends.
No.
You know what I mean?
I saw the very real possibility that this thing could slip into neverdom, by looking at the way the wells were allowed to come online. Now, I did the very same thing. Like I let Don take a dump on my live. For me, it was different. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, Benny's different," but to me, what I had going on was completely different. I wasn't watching the animals in the zoo. I was getting a baseline on profile and behaviors and things that were going to change or not change. All of that. And I've always I've always held it in my heart, Will, that I will turn on my best friend in a second for a child I don't even know.
Now, I'm going to ask you a tough question. As someone who okay, let me I'm trying to find a delicate way of asking
No,
this,
I understand. I
but
appreciate it.
a direct way of asking it as well. You know, so can you say genuinely that you considered or still do Don and Candace your friends? Genuinely.
I
Or
love
did you
Candace.
or
I
did
love Candace for the
or
woman that she wants to be, for the woman that she is now. There are some very great qualities in her. I love her. I love Sandman as well. But when it comes when it comes to the little girl in the middle, and there's some evidence that needs to be looked at, like I will turn into a savage immediately. I will turn into the biggest snitch. I will
sure.
scream it from the
Sure.
hilltops.
And I
Yeah.
completely agree. I feel exactly the same way. But I'm of the impression, see, people are going, well, Benny, he fell under their spell and blah blah blah. Like they're already these evil people and they fooled you and now they got you rooting for them and blah blah blah. I've always simply took your dynamic with them as based on innocent until proven guilty. I'm
That's it.
going to be their friends. I'm going to assume that they are missing their child until I get a reason not to.
Absolutely, Will.
And now you have a reason not to.
That's it.
And it's
We
so
reached
I don't understand what the confusion is.
no, we reached a jump off, and I think that ultimately part of the issue here with Benny is ego, right? It's like, well, we thought he was doing one thing, and then actually once he reached an inappropriate sort of cusp, he stepped away. Like that shows an integrity that no one wanted me to have. They said, oh well, if Benny hears the secret, he's going to perpetuate the secret and not tell. Like absolutely not. I was never here to save Don and Candace's skin. I was here to bring Summer home in socks, not a box.
Yeah, I love it. I completely agree. Um, let me ask you one more thing.
Sure.
Um, Again, I'm trying to figure out how to I'm not an interviewer. I never have claimed to be. And this wasn't meant to be an interview. This was meant to just
Two buddies talking.
give us what you that and fill me in on what's going on because I don't have all the facts on the latest update. So
Correct.
but I'm also, I guess it's valid because I'm also hearing through the grapevine and everything, and I'm hearing people looking at people's comments in certain chats, going, Benny's a sellout, and Benny, did basically saying that you flip flopped, that you basically just flip flopped because there was something that Candace might have done that made you mad, or and
Bro, she's been doing things that make me mad for about the better part of 8 months now.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. I mean,
because I have the conversations with you and then I see what she does and then I'm going, that's gotta be something
hard.
that gets under his skin. Yeah, that's gotta be tough to keep up. But
Absolutely.
so now how long have you had this information?
I got the information. I became hip to the information the night of March 1st. I had a conversation with the PIs, and that's when they initially accused me of downloading the phone. Although the strange dynamic, Will, is that after doing my investigation about the phone, I found out that the PIs already knew who had downloaded the phone, but they were trying to displace the blame on me, which I found, yeah, it was almost like it was something that happened in a vacuum that I was never supposed to know about. And as soon as I did, I got to the bottom of it, and it was a bunch of fishiness.
But why would the PI just assume it was you?
He knew it wasn't me. He knew that Tim done it because he had already had conversations with Tim and Candace about this scenario. So for them to come back around the horn and convince me that I had done these things, it was like there's something going on. And the
So
way
do
that
you think that they tried to put it on you?
I do, I do, yes, sir.
Wow.
They tried to put the download of the phone on me.
Okay, that's way different.
It's way
So
different.
yeah. So
Absolutely, sir.
and then you confronted Candace about this, no doubt. You
Correct.
had to have. I
Correct.
mean, there's
Correct.
no way I would be accused of something like that, or I would suspect something like that, and ask somebody I call my and not ask somebody I call my friend
Correct.
what that's their side of this is. Like, yo,
Absolutely.
you need to let me know what's up right now.
Right.
Um,
And of course, she lied. She lied to me. Like Candace, I was okay with her lying to me throughout. I mean, this woman lied to me every day about something, Will, and I was okay with her lying to me because, I made a promise to myself that, like, even if I found out Don was like the worst man in all of creation, I still was going to help find his daughter.
right.
It didn't matter to me if she lied to me about what she had for breakfast and I watched her eat it. That wasn't going to change me from
White
helping her
lies.
find her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are white lies. Yeah. Like
absolutely,
there's a lot of people who do that.
absolutely.
It
There's a
doesn't
lot of
make them murderers,
no.
you
There's a
know.
lot of people that are in their addiction, and dishonesty and deceit and inaccuracy are part of their addiction. So
Now people are asking me to ask you if you know what is on the phone, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with airing that out here, even if you do know, because we don't know if that will affect the investigation. So that's how
I,
I feel about that.
and you know what? I think I'll ride the high road with you on that one.
All right. Now, do you know what's on the phone?
I know I don't know the content per se, but I am aware of who could be calling him and what would potentially be on the phone. And those things would be, some of the underworld ties that Mr. Wells has that fuels his addiction. So, those things would certainly want to be looked into. Now, the issue, as I don't know if you're aware, I know that you have an iPhone, Will.
Yes.
Um, the iPhone is notoriously uncooperative with allowing law enforcement in that, so to speak, back door to do an investigation.
Yeah. Unless it's like jailbroken. But
Right.
I don't even know if that will do it. But because I know Apple is all about customer privacy. They
That is
love
it.
that
Like,
shit.
when they were developing the whole thing, they made a choice. Like, do we open all of them or do we open none of them? And they chose an airtight security for their customers, which I think is great for people who are. I have an iPhone, but not for that reason, right? So,
I have to acknowledge the super chat real quick because it's extremely generous, first of all, but also just such a beautiful comment. Love you both. Love your lives. You both do great. Sent to Benny's Cash App too. Buy yourselves a nice steak dinner. Avery Shannon.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Miss Avery.
so much. Wow. Double generous. Amazing.
Double generous. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, so so when it comes to, I mean, now have you turned in this information to law enforcement?
I did. Yes. I turned it in March 2nd. So it happened the evening of the March 1st. I became aware of the backup of the phone, and I
So
appealed.
basically, as soon as you found out, you went to law
Oh yeah, yeah.
enforcement.
I didn't play. I didn't waste not a second. I appealed
Nice.
to both of them, heavily appealed to them, and I realized that I was kicking a dead horse, and I was like, well, if you're not going to bring it to them, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they come and get it from you.
Yeah. I mean, that's suspicious as hell, dude.
It
Like
is.
there's just no way around that.
No, no, no way.
There's no way to responsibly ignore that.
No, you cannot. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. You cannot responsibly ignore that. And again, I want the little girl to come home in socks, not a box.
Right.
And so if someone has information that I believe could potentially help resolve this situation, it needs to be in the hands of the TBI, February 8th. Like the day after Don goes to jail, they should have been on a turnaround taking that phone back up there. Now, I'll tell you this, I'll add to it and expound that the reasoning they used to get the phone back from the Sandman was telling him that they were going to run forensics on the phone. So they got the phone back, and on the shelf it sits. It has not been touched.
But I mean, you wouldn't know the answer to this question, but any more than I would. But, um, my whole thing is, I mean, I'm sitting here wondering, can't law enforcement just get a warrant for that phone?
They can.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's a paperweight if he decides he doesn't want to put the passcode in there. They can't forcefully make him. All they can do is attach time to his sentence, whatever, or hit him with obstruction or whatever. Like, no, they can't. But the saving grace is that the copy that Sandman has is not protected by Apple terms of service. It's on his PC. It's just waiting. It's sitting there.
wow.
And he's not going to take it in.
I mean, yeah, so it's just a question of Sandman doing the right thing and or Candace doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
But why? I mean, yeah, like, because the bottom line is, I just don't see. Thank you, Shelby. I appreciate that. I just don't see. I don't see Sandman not getting a charge of tampering with evidence. So that would be his motive for not turning it in. But
I explained it all to him. I explained to him that, I wasn't here to talk about Don's essays with his sisters. I just wasn't. I was here to talk about Summer.
right.
But when that stuff popped up, I couldn't help but identify the fact that Mr. Wells does, in fact, possess some sexually deviant traits. I could not.
Wow.
He has the issue where he goes off and uses narcotics, and a portion of that behavior revolves around having paid sex workers, and so there's just so much that goes into it. It's the ideal that Don believes his child was trafficked.
So you've seen
But
you've seen actual evidence that this is one of Don's vices.
While I was there in December, I was there 7 days. He was gone 5 of the days. They actually filed a missing persons report, an informational report, one that just didn't go over the scanner because they didn't want, a huge media deal. But when he came back from being down in Knoxville smoking crack, there was a lipstick and a pair of panties in the car.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, like, now I gotta be fair here. Don't get offended. It's just,
No, absolutely.
I gotta be fair here. Like, this is still hearsay. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I would, for me to be totally convinced of that and take that as fact, I'd have to see receipts. Now, I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying it's just, I have to put that out there. You know what
That's
I mean?
being objective. And I
Right.
know that about you. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that about you. You're not just going to, take anybody's word for it. And that's a beautiful thing.
And one more tough question. Have you had any information? This is just to clear it up.
Sure.
Because this is some shit that I've been hearing, and I just want to dismiss that because I need to see evidence of that too. So, but I can ask you directly, have you had any information on Summer and what happened to her prior to this incident? Ever?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
So,
nothing,
I mean, that's
nothing that was that. Nothing that is particular or interwoven into this situation as it is right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think the chances are of this phone getting turned in?
I I hope that it's much higher now, because I hope that the people involved, they see that I'm really for Summer all the way, and that even throughout the course of this thing, I've forged very strong bonds with the Sandman and other people. But I mean, as soon as you venture out of bounds, like I'm the official, I'm the line official. You're not going to step out of bounds and then try to step back in and act like I didn't see you. I saw you do it. So now,
Right.
if you're here for Summer, if you're doing this, that, or the third, like, your main responsibility is to turn over every and anything.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, okay, so because I know that you played, I couldn't make it out, but I know that you played uh a recording between you and Candace, a conversation on one of your lives last night, right?
Yes, sir.
And what does she admit to in these things that make these things fact?
She admitted to. I pinned her down and I was like, on the WJHL that your mother was on, it certainly seemed as if you and your mother put Donnie on an island. And her exact verbiage was, Donnie is on the island. So Donnie has been excommunicated in a sense, in terms of what's going on with Summer's situation, it seems like. Um,
That's really odd.
yeah, absolutely. I also asked her, I said, do you think Don is smart enough to have done something but make it look like you did it? And she said anything was possible. I asked her, does she think Don is turning on her? And she said she believes Don is turning on her. Well, I asked her, I was like, turning on you for what? Like, did you guys have a meth lab? Did you rob a bank? Like, what is he going to be turning on you for?
Right. Yeah.
And it just sort of stopped there. I asked her other
So
peripheral
she didn't
questions,
have an answer for that. Okay.
or she didn't relay one.
Right.
I asked her that. I asked her specifically if Don had ever broken the law, and that she helped him cover it up. And she didn't really go deep into that, when I in fact know that she has. Like, if Don has brought large amounts of cocaine home, that's against the law. If she's not called the police, then she's in a way complicit, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and then
Basically, any crime, if he's on probation, then he's violating his probation and committing a crime. And so
absolutely,
she would have leverage over him. Um,
wholeheartedly.
okay, so that makes sense. But so for the people who don't know who Sandman is, could you give us a quick explanation of who Sandman is and what his role is in all this?
Yeah, the Sandman is Tim Mullins. He's the media manager. He's the one that's responsible for updating findsummerwells.com. And I'm here to preface this, that he's a very decent man. He is a very decent man. And this is not an attack on Candace or the Sandman. This is an attack on this case. We need to have that information. And I'm calling on you two, one of you, do the right thing for Summer. Bring the phone in now.
Yeah. That's what we're
This
here
is
to
the
do
thing,
tonight.
Will.
This is what
This
we're
is
here
the
to do
thing.
tonight.
Even
If that phone is a thing and it was, tampered with, downloaded, or whatever, that needs to be turned into law enforcement, especially based on the manner that it was,
handed back.
right.
Yeah, and to add to the confusion, or to untie the confusion for some of us, to take the phone in and to be cooperative and just walk in and say, okay, here it is, take a look at it. Like, transparency, like that in itself could, and I do believe would, push towards clearing them as suspects, right?
Right. If they're innocent,
Yeah.
sure, why not?
So it's a
That's
dual
just
edged
another form of
tool.
cooperation.
Absolutely.
So Dawn not so sweet is saying, didn't they already have the phone? Well, yeah, I'm thinking that that since they were considered cooperative at the beginning of this case, I'm sure they looked at his phone.
They had a
But what this is now is, this is after the fact.
That was a pre-offense phone.
Right.
The post-offense
There
phone.
could be the point is, there could be texts where there's an admission, or
GPS
something,
coordinates,
right? There could be anything. There could, I mean,
anything.
if God forbid they are responsible for what happened to Summer, and you know doing something with her body, there could be, again, GPS coordinates that could show where she is.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here. We don't know what the hell could be on that phone. It could be anything. It could be nothing. We don't
And
know.
that's the other thing, is that, my hope, my sincerest hope, is that there's nothing on the phone.
Right.
I want to believe there's nothing on the phone, but I
I
can't
don't
go
want
to
to. I don't
sleep.
want to find out that they had something to do with this child's disappearance. I don't want to
That's
find
it.
that out.
I don't either. But and so that's where you see that it's not like you're just going in there to potentially tell on your husband. You're taking the phone in to potentially clear his name.
Right.
I mean, now,
Or finding out what happened to your daughter.
absolutely,
You
Will.
know, I mean, that's it's
I mean,
just
she can't say in one breath that she feels like Mr. Wells is getting ready to turn on her, but at the same time, not go turn in the very thing that could keep her out of the grease.
yeah. Because and this also would present a valid explanation. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying it would make sense. It would actually present a valid explanation as to why Ronnie Lawson said what he said when we were all confused, because Candace was not behaving like somebody who lawyered up. So when he
Correct.
says they lawyered up, or they have attorneys now, what he could have been talking about is simply, they stopped cooperating. Maybe they know about the phone and they want the phone, but by now I figure they would have probably got a warrant for it.
Well,
Um,
so I turned in the phone business on the 2nd, and I believe it was the 4th or the 5th they came down there and did the 2-day search.
right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, the PI would have this information before law enforcement, though. You know what I mean? I feel like the PI would go straight to law enforcement before he went to you with this information.
That's what you would want to have happen, but that isn't actually what happened, unfortunately. So it's
Do we know
moving.
that didn't happen?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's that. Let me tell you what, Will. The connotation behind the phone was that it was just in the bag on the shelf. No activity with it. And when I first found that out, it was it's an iPhone in question. I called it through the landline, and the service was interrupted. They didn't pay the bill. But when I called it FaceTime, which FaceTime, you can use the FaceTime through your Wi-Fi. My joker rang and rang and rang and rang. The phone was on, and she told me it wasn't.
Yeah, it would just say FaceTime unavailable immediately if the
Exactly.
phone was off.
Absolutely. And it rang and rang and rang and rang, and nobody picked it up. And I was like, wow, like she just lied to me again about the phone. Like, why are you lying to me about this phone?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, because people are doubting and they're saying, oh, well, he's playing you. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, he has proof of this, right? Didn't you play recordings of talking to Candace about this shit?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
just because I'm not playing them here, doesn't mean, you can't go and do your homework on it, and whatever. Like, if it turns out
It
he's lying,
was
call him out on it later. But right now,
it's a
I'm just
very,
getting
very
Benny's side of
thorough
this.
questioning. A very thorough questioning I've been giving her over, the past 8 months. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, Benny's keeping secrets. Benny knows. Benny knows." I've known nothing up until I hit the stone wall about the cell phone. And to be quite honest with you, I've put up with normalizing domestic abuse. I've put up with normalizing sexual assault. I've put up with having to normalize racism throughout this thing from the Wells. And
Wow.
that was an impossible feat, it seemed like, but here I am today, and I made it through. But I could not keep a secret like the other two people. I could not keep a secret that there was a potential portal of all the information we need to solve this.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's just it's the way I see it. I just don't see you having the lack of sense of knowing that. Now, I've seen other people. But you having the lack of sense of knowing, um, that all this stuff is going to be cleared up later at some point. I mean,
Right.
at some point, we don't know where law enforcement is in their investigation right now. They
No.
could make an arrest tomorrow for all we know. They could discover where she is tomorrow for all we know. And when that happens, there will be police reports. There will be probably a
Data.
trial. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There'll
Absolutely.
be data. So
You have to also remember that I just became more fluent with the way that Hawkins County's grand jury works, and evidently they file their indictments once a month, and we're coming up on the release for who they're going to indict for the month. So there's the very real possibility in every situation when it looks like there's nothing going on. Grand juries work back in time in a time capsule, 6 months, 5 months. Like they could be all the time adding new information to this case behind the scenes in a grand jury to try to get a true bill.
let me address this comment real quick. But question, why does Candace wait? And there was another super chat here. Be Botanical, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. Terry doesn't deserve any praise, but just kidding. All right. So, but question, why does Candace have to tell everything to BK? Well, I mean, she doesn't, but aren't you glad that she did?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, aren't you glad that he was smart enough to record it? Because then it would be just another he said, she said situation.
I never just randomly recorded Candace or any of that. I only started recording her
when you got suspicious.
When I got suspicious. Absolutely, right. Sir. Yep.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is hard to understand.
I don't either. and I do believe wholeheartedly, and I want to believe that the uncooperative nature that Sheriff Lawson painted them in, I want to believe it was behind the telephone. Now, when we hear from Ronnie Lawson all this 9.5 months that there's the very real possibility that she wandered away from the home and became lost in the mountainous terrain surrounding her home, as soon as Ronnie Lawson says that they're not cooperating, like, Will, if one of your dogs runs off and you don't know where it went, how helpful can you actually be? You can't.
Right.
So
like, I could tell you the last time I saw the dog, how the dog was acting.
Absolutely.
Whether or not I had a door open or not, maybe.
Correct. But at any point,
I could give you all that information, but
you would never expect anyone to come back around and say, oh, Will's not actually trying to help find his own dog.
Right.
As soon as someone told you weren't trying to help you find your own dog, wouldn't that mean that potentially they think you did something to your dog?
I mean, if it became such a public thing, there's definitely going to be a mass mob of people who are going to just start saying that shit based on nothing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, in my opinion, when Sheriff Lawson said that they're being uncooperative, to me, that was him spinning the scope and putting it completely on Don and Candace. That went from parents that, had a child wander off to parents that they think know something.
Yeah. I mean, like, it just, I would never, ever know that. See, right. Everybody, and this is something that can't be denied. Every single person who is judging these people is based on their lifestyle.
Correct.
Everybody until now, right? Until the very first thing that ever came out that made you go, wait a minute, that is fucked up. You have potential evidence that you have not turned into law enforcement. That needs to be fixed right now.
It's not even potential. It is evidence. Whether or not it's evidence that leads to her coming home or not, his phone is evidence.
Yeah, it needs to be examined as such, most definitely. And so, but I just don't. I get lost when I get people that don't seem to understand. You you have to just let law enforcement do what they're going to do. But at the same time, you like I was saying, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But like I was saying before, everybody that I've seen that have jumped to the conclusion has been based on nothing. That Don and
Absolutely.
Candace know something hasn't been based on anything solid
Nothing.
until now.
Until now.
And I'm
Absolutely.
and I'm not even saying that's still enough to think that they're guilty of anything. I'm not even saying that yet. What I'm saying is this is the first time where I'm just like, okay, I'm definitely looking at them more side-eyed now.
Yeah.
And it's gonna get worse the longer I don't know whether or not that phone was turned into law enforcement willingly.
Absolutely. Let me add really quick that when the boobs on the ground were there and everything transpired down the hill with the wood and all that, the Wells, we all collectively called the police. When the police came, I was absolutely floored, Will, by the way that the Hawkins County Police interacted with the Wells. It was one of the dynamics that I was so interested in before I ever came to Tennessee. I was like,
Elaborate
how?
on that.
Yeah, I'm like, how do the police treat the Wells when they're in their presence, right? So here come the police bailing up the hill, car after car after car, to come talk to them about Molly Golightly and them. And the police treated them like absolute shit.
Huh.
And I thought, there it is right there. I believed.
Like how did they treat them like shit? Like were
I
they
be,
just dismissive or were they
oh yeah,
rude?
like rude and dismissive. It wasn't until Cliff Evans, who is the main detective on the Hawkins County side, came that he sort of reestablished a little decency. But the whole time, I'm like, this guy. It's a Lieutenant Macklin. He's sort of the foot soldier, the number one guy in the field underneath of Cliff Evans. This is on the Hawkins County side. He came and he had been the one responding to a lot of the things, domestically at the house. And he came there and he treated the Wells like shit. And I thought, wow,
Well, I mean, well,
he treated him the way I interpreted it
if
was like he
if
thinks
I'm
they did it, he can't prove it.
okay, true. That's one way to look at it, but couldn't it be also considered? I mean, you think of the calls that these people get, and every time they show up to these people's house, it's some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
it's these two that can't fucking handle their fucking drinks or they're high, and then they get at each other,
Yep.
or they uh they have fucking crazy ass people flying across the country and driving across the country to harass them and give them a hard
Absolutely.
time, you
Now,
know,
you're
when they're
you're at
trying to when they see that. Because I mean, think about it. Le's just going to see that as something that is not helping their investigation. If
at
they're
all.
trying to find Summer, they're seeing this and being like, "Fuck,"
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
and I had to quantify the man. I had to qualify the man, and so I saw a lapse, a low spot in the interaction, and he was looking. The Lieutenant Macklin was looking at me, and so I just kind of nodded my head to the side, like, "Come over here and talk to me real quick." And he came right over, and once he started interacting with me, he's a very decent man. He's a very decent man.
Okay, so
He cares about
interaction.
some.
You had
Absolutely.
individual interaction with him to
I
give you
had to make
more of an insight to create your opinion of him. I
yes.
get
I'm like, is
it. I get
this? I figured I'm going to get this guy over here, and he's going to treat me like shit too. He
it.
he did not. Lieutenant Macklin is a very decent man, and he wants that little girl home. And in
I
my
believe that everybody charged with the responsibility of finding Summer, all of the professionals want Summer home. I believe that.
they do, man. They want the suffering to be over with. They really do. Like when I say suffering, like I'm referring to her having had lived on the hill. That was suffrage.
Right.
That was suffrage. No matter what you want to call it, for a child to grow up around the likes of, Jose's and all these other people around there, you just wonder what kind of life the little girl was going to have living there, anyways, right?
I still haven't listened to that interview. Now I because I mean, fuck Justice for All. For that reason, seriously, and for that reason, and for the reason that, like we talked about on your live stream. I mean, that's just some guy who admits to having mental health issues that was crashing on their couch. Like, how credible is this guy?
He's not.
How credible is a jury gonna see him? That's how I have to look at that. So I was just like, I'm not even gonna listen to this. Now, if there had been something that he said that was shocking, that would have some sort of like, oh, wait a minute, what? That sort of thing that pertained to information regarding Summer's location or what happened to her, then I'd be like, okay, I need to listen to this and see what's going on. But until then, if this guy's just talking about his experience, like, you know what I mean, in the house, I'm just gonna be like, well, how do I know any of that shit happened?
Well, he disqualifies himself immediately with, and this is the thing. It's such a strange dynamic to me, is that he was very forthcoming about aspects of his own mental health super early on in the conversation. Like in the first 6 minutes, he had referred to his own mental health like 2 or 3 times. So even with his blunt honesty about his own mental health scenario, that in itself was the thing that helped disqualify him from being, from being a viable source of information.
Huh.
In my opinion, and not only that, but I had a particular foot in the door where I knew more about Jose before Jose even came out. And in terms of Jose, you hate to. I'm not here to categorize anything LGBTQ as deviism, but in Jose's account, or in Jose's situation, his sexuality is a big part of who he is, in terms of, he's always minimalizing or distancing himself from children and nudity and things of that nature. But meanwhile, I was capable of finding him on quite a few she-male sites, asking and wanting very deviant things.
Yeah, but does that make him less credible in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, if people like trans women, they like trans women. You know what I mean? I do. I don't see how.
Agree. I agree. What the reason why it was pertinent was because Candace made the contention that Jose was downstairs and he came up the stairs, and when he arrived upstairs, he said, I want a chick with a and so that in the moment was the very thing that severed the sexual relationship between Allie and Jose. Now you had Allie and Candace actually corroborating the fact that Jose was into some weird stuff. Weird by their thinking. So
by their standards, right?
By their standards, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you've got him sort of.
These are not exactly the people that you would consider woke or progressive.
Not at all. Contemporary, none of that. But what it did paint into the picture subsequently is that Jose does have some extracurricular sexual desires and fantasies, as well as his introduction into domestic situations where services should probably be called on children or parents, and he doesn't report it because of the transient behavior, needing a couch to stay on, needing food, needing, sustenance and shelter. He's patterned and molded himself into someone that is completely transient, and he is only transient in situations like the Wells. It's got to be so dysfunctional that he can fit in and seem like a superstar.
I mean, we're seeing that a lot, though. Like, we're seeing that from H's dad. Like, why is he even on YouTube? Like, for what?
He's done nothing but hamstring his son's situation.
What is he? Right. Like, that's the most irresponsible shit you could be doing as a parent.
Yeah, most, like we know Traditionally, the way that criminal justice scenarios work is that it's this whole thing was derived.
Because
They
it
didn't.
doesn't just make him look bad. Sorry to interrupt you. It doesn't
No,
make
go
him
ahead.
look bad. It makes all of them look discredible.
Absolutely.
Like, think about it. If these are the people, because I find Ali just as questionable as him. So if these people are raising H, those are his examples. I can't take much credibility into what he says either.
You just can't, because throughout the course of these pseudo cross examinations they're doing on each other, I mean, first of all, you have to understand that the very things these people are saying on the YouTube will be the very things that they cross examine these people against if it goes to court ever. So whatever these people say online, they have to be able to recreate it and reproduce it exactly, because if they don't, the ideal of their testimony being excluded is a very real possibility.
Right. That's happening a lot. This is going to be, if these people make an arrest and it's one of the people that everybody suspects, right? It's going to be so easy for the defense. Like,
It's going to be cake.
I'm not a lawyer at all, but this seems like, in theory, based on being just a Law and Order fan watching it on TV, this seems like the kind of thing that would constitute a mistrial.
I
Like,
mean,
if they
immediately,
can
Will.
collect enough, think about that. If they can collect, all a defense attorney has to do is go, look at this YouTube channel, Who is
Absolutely.
that? That's Ali. That's H. That's Andrew. That's Jose. All of these people are tainted witnesses. All of them.
Absolutely. And they've all crossed over and essentially rebutted their own statements, and they're so unaware of the way the criminal justice system works, they don't realize it. They don't realize the way they could have been of service to their son was to say nothing at all.
Or just be responsible enough to say what I always say, which is, I don't really know.
That's
I mean,
it.
we can discuss it, but I honestly don't know, and I'm not going to talk to you like I do.
Right.
You
There's no
I'm
foul.
just trying to encourage those who don't know what they're talking about to realize you don't know what you're talking about, and just be responsible in how you deliver information and
That's
how you
it.
speculate. That's
It.
all I'm saying.
If you don't know, go find out. And if you don't want to
Right.
find out, just don't spread it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. If you're too lazy to do the homework, don't talk on it, because it's just irresponsible. And now look at us, like, again, I don't know, but in theory, it totally seems as though there's already enough to declare a mistrial.
I mean, right
And
off
how
the
do
bat.
we know that that's not even the reason? How do we know that's not even the reason why nobody's been charged yet?
That's exactly it, Will. I mean,
Think about that.
You may find a scenario where a grand jury is kicking this thing around in the back chambers
And going, nope.
Like, yeah, that sounds good, but then this guy says, yeah, it's not going to work because of this. And so you've got all these things that cancel each other out. Potentially, you're exactly ironclad correct. It could be a scenario where they're like, listen, we'll never get any justice in court.
Or the DA, or the DA even says, we don't got nothing to prosecute with, man.
That's it.
Like,
it's ruined.
Like any defense attorney, a public defender could probably get this thrown out.
Absolutely.
And so,
I mean, you see the bodiless warrant ideals. You see it in Cal City with Classic and Sincere, Orrin and Orson West. The bodiless warrant isn't unimaginable or unheard of, but you got to have something that's going to lead you to the direction that, whether it be a biological situation, you got fluids or whatever, now they quantify, well, with this pile of fluid biological material, it's safe to say that someone didn't survive that type of injury. But right now you've got zero, no forensics, no. I mean, what we have right now is the ideal of a backup of Don Wells' phone, and we know statistically, in the high 90 percentile, parents are involved in these things.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and it really sucks because, and I don't regret this for 1 second, because I'm like this with every case that I talk about, every single one. I am absolutely consistent with, even though those statistics are there and they're valid, that does not mean there's still that 10%. And that 10% is so important, because if that 10% is the case, you've got some really distraught people that
That's
are
it.
really worried about their daughter, and you're harassing them, and
Correct.
you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
so that there's that 90%, sure, but that 10% is so bright and
It
so
abs-
important.
you're absolutely right. Well, we know, dependent on the year and the dynamics going on in the year, that between 1 and 300 children go missing organically with the stranger danger. That's like one every 3 days, or in some cases almost one a day somewhere. But when you look at the grand scale of cases resolved, I mean,
And yeah,
any of the cases,
PBI has a
yeah,
great record, and I know that
yes,
just by following them on Twitter,
they
because
have
what
a
they'll
great
do,
resolution rate.
yeah, they post an Amber Alert, and then they'll post found safe. Almost every time there's a found
Yep,
safe
yep,
tweet.
yep.
So I follow that, and I think that gives me hope. So based on what we've already sat here and speculated on, as far as what could be happening behind the scenes, in as far as an arrest goes, based on what we've seen on YouTube, because this is evidence, this is out there,
It's
it's out there,
evidence.
period.
Yep.
It just is. So, and that's enough for a defense. I mean, it could be enough for a defense. I don't
I
know.
mean, even if the DA, I mean, we run down the track on this thing, and we get to the end game, and we're sitting in court, and I guarantee you, it would be brought. I mean, if the
It'll be
wells were
brought
ever,
up.
it'll
It'll
be
be
brought up.
used. It's just a
Why?
question of whether or not it's successful in convincing doubt in a juror, and I
Absolutely,
don't see how it wouldn't.
it
I
would.
mean,
It would.
I don't see how that wouldn't create doubt in a logical juror.
It would.
Uh, you know,
You've had the potential portal of mass information, maybe potentially a cure to this situation, in a phone, in a computer, and no one felt like they needed to just rush it to the TBI the very first day. To me, that's a tragedy.
I agree. Um, well, sorry, there's people that are like, "What's going on?" And they don't even. I'm
You
not.
know,
I'm not going to make you explain that all over again.
interestingly enough, last night when I started doing what I was doing, I received a series of text messages from Bullhorn Betty, and she was like, "Oh, Benny, I see that you've turned the corner now." And I'm like, "Listen, Betty, you don't know anything." And I said, "You're wrong again." And she's like, "Well, I just like the opportunity to come onto your platform and just show them how opposite theories." Sometimes meet in the middle. And I'm like, listen, I never in life
She
would
said
talk
it
to
on.
you
She said on
publicly
your platform.
on my platform. Yeah.
Man, I would have took her up on that shit, if I'm being honest, dude. Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your channel. I'm just saying, I would have been like, I would love that. I would
Well,
love that. Come
I
on up
told her,
here and explain to me and justify all the shit that I've been calling you out on all
right,
this time.
right.
I would love to
It,
hear that.
I wanted to. There was a real itch to do it, but it was like, you know what? Like for what I would feel like I personally gained, she would actually gain from me even making her a part of what's going on.
She
Like,
would
she's
gain, yeah,
irrelevant.
yeah,
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 she would
yeah.
gain.
That's the whole thing. Because right now, yeah, like a lot of people are talking about this. If you're following the Summer Wells case, then you're probably talking about this. And by her going on your channel, that would absolutely, she would gain from that, and I
Yep.
could see how you wouldn't want that.
No.
um
You
yeah, so
stomp
that
you
that
stomp
makes
fire
perfect
out.
sense.
You don't blow
Yeah,
on
yeah.
it.
Exactly. I mean, but the thing is me, but you, in all fairness, you don't lean into her as much as I do. You have, but
I have. Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, I've just done so many lives,
You've done great work on her, bro.
right, well, thanks, man. But so for her to come on my channel, it would just be, I would just be like, is it my birthday? Like,
Right. Pinata, pinata.
because there's just, yeah, she would never do that. She won't even mention my name.
No, 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 no. And furthermore, I have a deep affinity for crude, for Frank, you know, and there's
Yeah.
no way, there is
Right.
absolutely no way I could ever forget what she did to my friend Frank and allow her to come up and talk about anything I got going on. Like I'm Frank Strong. I stand with AF Crude
Yeah.
AF. You know,
Yeah.
like I would
Yeah. Yeah.
never
I
turn on
mean,
him like that.
that was just some cowardly shit. You know what I
It
mean?
was.
That was as cowardly as a YouTuber gets. Uh, because it's, you can get up here and you can harass people, you can show up to their house, you can show up to their jobs and get them fired without any evidence at all whatsoever. And even if you did, it's still fucked up. But
Absolutely.
so and then you do all this, and then you have the nerve to take legal action to shut someone up for calling you out on it.
I know.
That
You
is
know,
that is you I mean, that's an inside out.
it's you can't even describe it, bro. And furthermore, it's like for you to come here, you have to absolutely be so cautious with your opinion because there's a trickle down economic in all of this stuff. If you think for today it's a good idea to try to go get Don locked up, well, then you don't realize on the trickle down, or at least she didn't realize on the trickle down that he was paying support to the state for his children. So now you've created a scenario where you've removed the man from employment, and it was self-servicing in a way where
It was
you felt
purely self-serving because they
that's it.
only did it for content.
That's it.
They
They
only did it for content. And
they
so,
never identified the trickle down
and
economics
as
where
far as
this
her
thing would
taking the
stop at.
legal action, I'm seeing this in chat too. I don't like to talk too much about this, but just out of respect for Crude, but it's just my personal opinion on the situation. And it's just like, I think it was super cowardly on top of the cowardly things that I just named. She even had to lie on that cease and desist, and
Absolutely.
we know about that because when he got it, he read it out loud
Right.
on a live stream, and I read it out loud, uh, or played it anyway. And so it's these were just crazy lies, like lies that she could never produce any proof of, and it was just super cowardly, man. And so for that, that's exactly why she would never come onto my channel. She would never go on as a guest to Burnt Toast channel, is
Right.
because she knows that she will be called out and
And
be
we're
faced
we're
with truths that we go over on a constant
absolutely.
basis.
We're different. Like guys and gals, like, Burnt Toast and a lot of us, like we're different. And we're able to critically and logically think about these things in ways that some others aren't. And you can see the difference. Like we stand in the gap, right? Like guys like Glare and Crude and John Crimes and the little team we had going earlier, in the winter, like man, we were tearing it up. We were
And it's
tearing it
funny
up.
because we only came together organically. It just so happened
Absolutely.
that certain people's behavior caught so many people's attention and caught our attention to where we had to address it because we care about this case.
Absolutely.
So hey, what's up, Annie?
The best thing to me that came out of them going to Tennessee and doing what they did was, the relationships that me and you and Frank and Burnt Toast, like man, there's some great relationships that have been forged and never were contaminated. Right? We all organically came together in our way, and then we went on about our own way, but we didn't have to break up to do
Well, right. And
it.
what was interesting, exactly. That's a great way of putting that too. And what was interesting is it was only because we share most of the same moral values. We see people doing fucked up, dirty shit that's undeniably dirty and fucked up, right?
Absolutely.
And then we're just like so overwhelmed with the desire to fucking call them out on it. And then I hear Burnt Toast. Burnt Toast ends up on my panel, and then so on and so forth. I ended up,
Yeah.
Crude with Crude. I was on a live with Crude, and then we just all just, and crude and burnt toast were already part of another community.
Right.
It just so happened that these people's behavior fall under the content of this community, what they do,
Everybody was
and
up in
it
arms, and it was
just,
a beautiful thing,
and it's
dude.
just like the true crime community, the decent part of the true crime community kind of just, and the Lulz Cow community just kind of seep together with
Yep.
the same interests, and then it just turned out to be fun.
It
uh
was. It was, and
it
and
is.
there's still great awareness coming from channels like yours. Like I really applaud. Like in the internet world, they're like, okay, like you've done that enough. It's like, no, in the real world, consistency is what's key. Here, you can only do something for an allotted amount of time until someone tells you, okay, that's enough. Like
Right.
I applaud you for continuing to keep your heel and your knee on the necks of people that need to be kept in check, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
Somebody's got to do it.
it's, that's how I see it. If I'm being totally honest, I'm just like, why
Me
am I the
too.
only, there's so many situations where I'm like, why am I the only one talking about this? Like, how do you not see what's going on here? Because I do not take one thing back about what I said about Ryan Upchurch. I don't.
Me
I
either, bro.
simply don't. I've gotten so much shit about it. I've lost over 100 subs over it. You know what I mean? I've never lost that many subs in one time. I don't think ever.
Ever. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it was all just because people were like, no matter how much data I shared on the situation, and
It
I
didn't matter.
shared data, no different than anything I've done with Bullhorn Betty or Molly Golightly or anybody else, no different than that. But because it's him, people are like making excuses for him, and I'm attacking him, and I'm like,
let me tell you what, Will. I felt like the live, and I'm being real here. I felt like the live that I did with you, like there was a sort of investigation that unfolded that was like, wow, like this dude is not a good guy. And I'll be honest with you, like that was in terms of like investigations that unfold online, because I like those. I like to see somebody sort of start with nothing on a live and then build up a whole scenario with their resources down below, what they already have up here. And to me, bro, that was one of the more enjoyable lives I've ever had, because it was a real organic thing and it unfolded, and it reaped a result about the man that it wasn't like, the way that we did it. I was totally willing to get to the end and say, okay, well, Ryan's not that bad of a guy. We got to the end and it was like, whoa, like this guy is grooming young Southern Americans to be racist. Like there's nothing you can do with that. You can't get a foothold and try to stop that other than speak out about it.
Yeah, I agree. And dude, I hate to hit you with a curveball, man, but
No.
You're getting kind of attacked here in chat, and I don't know anything about what they're talking about, but they're talking about you using the N-word at some point recently.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't, I'm not
because
sure.
this guy's been blowing up my chat with it, and I'm just like, I'm thinking like, I'm not gonna fucking throw this guy a curveball, but since we're talking about the racism thing,
yeah,
it's a fair question.
It is. But
I don't know anything about it. I don't know, but I mean, I asked you about it, so
I'm not.
I don't know what else they want from me.
I don't know. Maybe that's some sort of connotation from another channel. I'm not sure. I don't use the word period. So,
right. I mean, I'm assuming that if it was, it could be found. So I don't
sure.
don't just throw that in my chat. And I really like this guy too. He actually has a channel, and the guy who's doing it and making these comments, I don't know what his problem is with you, but
what's his name? Andy?
Hillbilly Nitro USA.
I never heard of him.
And he's actually got a pretty solid following. But he's always been cool here on my channel. We've always seemed to agree on a lot of stuff, but he wants me to drop him a link, but I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Well, I mean, it's
because that's not why I brought you up here.
Right. We're here to talk about the phone.
Right.
If you could email me, sir, we could have a talk on the phone. I don't have any, I'm, pretty transparent in that respect. So, if you thought you heard something that offended you, then by all means, I'm apologetic to you, but I'm not going to have a war with anybody, period.
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and
Like
you see my
you can make,
position where I
yeah,
got to ask you because we were on a live stream, you know, criticizing people who use that word. You know what I mean? So I want to,
absolutely.
it's just one of those things that in my integrity couldn't let me ignore. If somebody's
No, I
saying,
mean,
and it's somebody who I have found credible on here in the past. So
absolutely. Let me
so
tell you what,
I
Will, like
came to
I'm
the decision to ask you about it, but I'm going to
for
draw the
sure,
line. I'm going to draw the line when it comes to giving him a link because that's not why I brought you up here. And I'm grateful that you were willing to join me. And I'm not
for
going
sure.
to turn this into an attack Benny fest. I'm just not going to do that.
I am a hip hop producer. It does not give me any leeway. But if I were to sit here and say that when I'm driving down the highway and I'm listening to my favorite, I mean, Kevin Gates is that's pretty much the only artist that I listen to. If I were to say that I drive down the highway and omit every N word that's in the song, dude, I'd be a liar, bro.
Right.
I'd be a liar. So if it's a word that someone has heard that they feel that was inflammatory, there's probably an explanation for it. I don't even know where this is deriving from, but it is what it is. But I do find it extraordinary when people sort of pull things out of the fold. I don't want to go too far into it, but yeah, Mr. Nitro, like, bro, when I'm listening to my music, yeah, bro, I say every word, bro, every word. Sorry.
Yeah. I think at this point, that's something he's just going to have to take up with you personally
Absolutely.
or on your channel or on his channel or whatever.
But
But
we know that's not the way it happens, though.
as far as I'm concerned, I have not heard a recording of this, and therefore I'm not going to jump to the conclusion and just take somebody's word, no matter how much I respect their word.
You know what? If that's what you pulled from it, I apologize that there was so much power in whatever you thought you heard. Like, um, it was a lot to pull from all of this, and I certainly don't think that um, I don't think that anything that is said, like, like, chastise me for recreate, like, what, and I'll be honest with you, bro. Josh at the lab, when Don said that N word online, I was like, oh man, because he didn't put it out there like he was, reciting words to, Tupac song. It had that hard ER on the end. And I went on and I talked about it and I shouldn't have. And the next morning, Josh from the lab, he was like, hey, bro, I see you recreated the N word. And it was at that point I was like, yeah, man, like, that was being forced to do weird stuff here, and so the normalizing of those things was always a problem for me from the beginning anyways.
Well, Hillbilly Nitro, man, I like you. Uh, and but you're now accusing me of calling you a liar, which I did not. I said that your word is usually very credible, but what I'm saying is I would have to see proof or hear proof of this. I
Now,
showed receipts when I talked about Ryan Upchurch. So I'm not going to not hold the same standard for him.
now, you
And
know what, bro? If I did, now let me tell you what. When we were talking about the Ryan Upchurch stuff, we were very vocal about Candace wearing the hat as well.
right.
And so I'm not, there were a couple of times, like, especially after Don did what he did. Like, I would call Don and I'll be like, I'm gonna just say, like, what's up, my nigga? Like, you want to be funny online and shit, bro? Like, what's up, my nigga? Like, you want to wear the fucking hat? Like, what's up, bro? Like, there you go, Nitro. Like, if it's something like that, bro, then, like, I apologize if it's inflammatory, but like, it's some bullshit that I put up with them people and I fired it back at them. I never had a problem firing that shit back at
So
them.
you're saying your reason for addressing them with the N word was for um to
Being
get them
racist.
to keep them comfortable with talking to you and staying close to them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I lied to them people as much as they lied to me, but they had no reason to lie to me.
Right.
They never had a reason to lie to me one time. Like, if someone's trying to help you find your dog, how do you call yourself lying to the person that's being helpful? It's just not a time to lie. You know what I mean? So I told a lot of lies to those people. I told those people a lot of stuff they wanted to hear in order to get to a stone wall. Because I knew, Will, as soon as I reached a stone wall, bro, I was done. I
Right.
wasn't gonna take a stone wall and then hide it and say, "Oh yeah, well I knew about that, but I just didn't say anything." Like, no. Like, when I hit the stone wall, I'm done. And then everyone else can figure out what's on the other side of that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I
I don't
mean,
want no more parts of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna be lied to anymore. I'm not gonna be, like, bro, my family, like, they've reached through that truth finder. They found every single family member of mine and they call them all night, every day.
yeah. I mean, I mean, it's a difficult situation, man. I mean, I wouldn't have done what you did. You know what I mean? Like, my whole thing was just, I'm keeping my distance. I'm not going to bug them to get on my panel. I just want to get, you know, if they want to come up and speak their mind, and I'm also going to tell them the same thing to their face that I've been saying to everybody, which is, listen, you don't owe anybody, any of us, anything. You, you don't owe any of us any explanation. You owe law enforcement, because they're the ones that are supposed to be trying to find your daughter. So
Absolutely.
you owe them. You don't owe any of these people or me. You
Let
know.
me ask you, let me interview you real quick.
Sure.
What do you think happened to Summer Wells if you wanted to publicly render an opinion?
I'll say the same thing that I've always said, which is exactly how I feel, which is 150% the truth. I do not have an opinion on what happened to Summer Wells because I don't have enough information.
That is so responsible, bro. I
Because
super duper applaud you.
I don't think, I don't, I mean, that's even less, First of all, I don't even know who's responsible for it. How am I supposed to know what happened to her if I don't know who's responsible for it? You see what I'm saying? There's no
That's
way to,
that's
there's,
ultra responsible, dude. Like, so many, like, I would, like, I've even rendered an opinion. I mean, it's based on my opinion, which is then again based on what I think I know and understand about this case. But there again, it changes. It changes every single day. Sometimes, I would wake up in the morning and say, well, I don't feel like they did it. And then by lunchtime, I'd already changed 3 or 4 different times. It's just the preponderance of evidence is
well, right,
so
because
large.
you're on conversations with these people on a constant basis. So
Every day, all day.
right. So since you're doing that, I mean, your wheels are going to turn all the time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And yet
Absolutely.
you still never came to any definitive real opinion,
No,
you
I
know?
just came to a stone wall.
Right.
Furthermore, just to add a little bit for Nitro, like, bro, I never said any of those things in front of a rebel flag. Moving forward.
Good point.
Okay, let me ask you this. What impact do you feel like the disappearance of Summer Wells has had on the community where you live in?
Um Honestly, the community where I live in, I mean, I live a good hour from Rogersville, maybe 45 minutes to an hour from Rogersville.
Right.
Um but my community here, most people, they've just heard her name, but they're not looking into it. You know what I mean? I haven't talked to anybody who is looking into it, and following it, not in person. That community just consists of YouTube. Patty Whack, thank you so much, and thanks again for the other one, Be Botanical. I just didn't want to interrupt. um but yeah, I just don't think, I mean, which to me is a good thing to a certain degree. If all they know is her face and her name, good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. In terms of the end game, do you think that this situation will change the way that law enforcement handles their business in East Tennessee?
I don't know enough about law enforcement here in East Tennessee. Um, I honestly don't. It's funny. I've talked to a couple of cops, but not anybody that actually, like there's a couple of cops that I know, and I've interacted with them, and I've asked opinions with as far as because I remember this one that I was talking to. He he goes to the same gym I do, and we were just making small talk, and I was talking about the channel, and then I asked him, about if he heard of the Summer Wells case, and he was like, I know of the case, but I haven't, I don't know anything about it actually,
Right.
you know. And then and this was during the time of the boobs on the ground doing what they were doing. And I was like, let me ask you something. Like, would this be, considered harassment? Like, he's like, absolutely. Like, that's, and
Yeah.
I was like, would you say that that would actually interfere with an investigation? He was like, totally. He was
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
he didn't even have to think about it. He was like, totally.
Yeah.
And for all the same reasons that I've explained so many times, and
Yeah.
you've elaborated on and explained as well,
Absolutely. What do you think? Like, so I became alerted to what was sort of building up between you and Ryan Upchurch. What was really the thing, other than his behavior between you and him? What was the thing that really sparked you to speak out against Ryan Upchurch?
When I saw the video, it actually showed up on my feed because obviously anything regarding Summer Wells is probably going to pull up on my feed.
Hmm.
And then I just clicked on it, and and I was like, whoa, who the fuck is this guy? You know? And I honestly didn't watch BHB's Live Today Giants 10. But I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Because like he's just like I'm listening to the things that he was saying based on this, and I'm thinking that this happened and blah blah blah. So not only is he doing just this crazy speculation, but he's
Yes.
doing it based on some trashy YouTubers explanations that and I'm not saying Christina Randall is irresponsible because he did name her, but he was sounding a lot like he was basically just drawing a conclusion that Don and Candace did it, and here's why. And all of it was hearsay. All of it was just,
It
um,
could he could have been right in the end, but he would have been
maybe.
right for the wrong reason.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my gripe with him was that he has. Think about that. I mean, this we went over this on your live. Like people's argument is, well, he just, people's argument is that he just, at least he put Summer's name out there. That's important, man. He's got a huge platform and you're not giving him credit for putting your name out there. I'm like, but how you put your name out there is important. And if you follow these things and you worry about what's important about getting, about evidence tainting and about witness tampering and about jury tampering, most
Absolutely.
importantly, because this guy having almost 3 million subscribers,
In that
you know,
area.
in this area, right? The majority of his fan base is right here, who probably follows the case. So, now did he spread information? I mean, I'm sure he's very large here in the United States, Um,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that his entire fan base is here, but I'm saying a good deal of it is probably here already. And that being the case, you know, imagine how much harder that could possibly make a jury selection when the time comes.
I mean, it could make it catastrophic. I mean,
Right.
I mean, you have to pick a
A
jury.
defense attorney could just bring that up. You know,
Absolutely.
I
Just the
moved
fact.
I
Yeah.
moved for a new venue.
Yeah.
Like, but where?
And that's
You know what
where,
I mean? Like,
I mean, historically, changes of venues are like within 60 or 100 miles, right? So, they don't like to pull, they just don't like to all the expense, right? So, in my opinion, in terms of resources and technology, the best thing that could happen to this case is a federal situation, right? If she went across the state lines, I mean, there's many opportunities in places that you could have went across a few different state lines pretty quickly within the time allotted.
Sure. Sure.
So that would certainly make it a federal situation where they would have all the top notch, federal court employees handling the situation. But it also removes the trial potentially from Tennessee altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And they're
Yeah.
not going to do that. They're not
No.
going to do that. So again, like, wouldn't the defense have grounds for a mistrial at this point? You know what I mean? Like,
Right out of the gate. Right.
I
I mean,
mean, in
I think
theory, again, we're not lawyers.
absolutely.
But in theory, based on things that we've seen in the past following cases, it just seems like that would be, the route, or at least an option of a route that the defense could take.
Yeah, I mean, you want a shotgun sort of situation in terms of like, you want it just to be, enough overwhelming, where like, we've been dealing with this for a long time. So I think that each day you creep away from June 15th, you get further and further away from any sort of definitive proof. At this point, what you got to have is a snitch or a confession. That's it. You need a snitch or a confession. And that's what the reward money is trying to cover. The reward's trying to cover to pay for a snitch, which it hasn't paid for yet. So the other thing you need is you need a confession. And if somebody's not willing to tell on themselves, man, things could go on forever.
Obviously not. I mean, it's been 8 months.
Right.
If we're talking about guilty people here, but it's been 8 months,
again, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, right?
Explain that, because I hear you say that all the time, and it just sounds like a tongue twister to me because I'm stupid. But I know you wouldn't say that unless it made sense. So, like, right. I always hear you say it. I'm just like, I always end up going.
It's like, just because it's not there doesn't mean that it's gone, or just because it's gone doesn't mean that it's not there, right? Like, it's being able to look at a coin and understand there's 3 sides to a coin, not just 2 sides to a coin. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like,
there's when you're talking about a couple fighting, right?
Right.
You got the one partner's version versus the other partner's version versus the truth.
That's it.
So I got you. Makes perfect sense.
The glare. BHB said Benny turned on Candace and turned info to Ellie on her live today.
We already went over that.
Yeah.
He
I wasn't here for Candace and Don.
I wouldn't say that he turned on Candace. I'd say that he was trying to get evidence, and this was as close as he was going to get. And it's one of those things where you could have sat on it and tried to get more, but you're not law enforcement. That's not your job. Your job is to get something that seems damning enough to where you feel like it would be irresponsible to not turn that over to law enforcement immediately.
There's no other way to do it. Period.
Right. That's not, and that is more than your place. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Well, we got a new member here, and I want to highlight it, but no, I can't find it. But I'll just
the thing is,
member for 3 months. Lori Girl 63. Thank you. Let's see. Candace said during her interview at Warriors with CM, he asked about her phone, and she said she had a phone that hadn't been taken by TBI. Huh. Okay.
But you've also
why not just give it to them, though?
Right. You've also got Jose's phone. You've got Hunter and his assortment of phones. There's a contention that there's 3 phones, maybe a phone he destroyed, one that the TBI took, and then the subsequent phone that he received from his mother that was his grandfather's that had passed. So, all these phones in a digital world is in my opinion, going to be the key. And so anytime you have access to a portal of information like a phone, and it's not being attended by Mr. Wells, like, the real pressure is on Candace to turn that phone in.
Look at this kiss ass motherfucker right here. See, that's what I'm saying is I can't help but laugh at that shit. You know, like, I just can't help but laugh at that lack of common
It's
sense, bro.
it is, bro. It's like they want you to, like, as soon as they find out that you were doing something that they don't understand,
That's
they're
what
like,
it
"Oh,
is.
look how quick it
Like he
changed."
doesn't have the mental capacity
No, he smoked it up, bro.
to even absorb what we just explained, which this is the second time that we've explained it. As a matter of fact, it's the second time we explained it on this live right here,
Here,
and the third time altogether because we explained it on your last live that I was on.
yes,
So, and not your last one, but I'm saying the
yes,
live I was on the last time
yes,
we
sir.
spoke on a live. But I mean, there was nothing more clear that we could help explain, but they don't want to think about that. They want to look at it like these are just fun things to talk about around, around a pool table or whatever.
I mean,
You know what I
shoot,
mean?
it's
It's
who would have thought you would have got involved in some true crime and got some free upchurch tickets?
I mean,
Shoot, we
right, and 500 bones, dude.
500, well, 250 after YouTube takes the cut.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Thank you, Dreamcatcher. Let's see. Benny, why don't you think Tim instead of Candace? Allegedly, of course. Well, that's Tim, let me answer that for Benny real quick and I'll let him elaborate because he did say earlier he doesn't know. It's just shady that the phone hasn't been turned in yet. What he's saying is Candace is guilty of not turning in the phone. That's what he's saying. That's Candace is guilty of not turning in the phone, and
Now,
apparently Sandman is guilty of not turning in the phone. That's all he's saying.
now that's all I'm saying. And to expound on it a little bit is that peripherally, there's the issue with the Apple. Now, Don has AT&T carrier because AT&T is the only one that gets the service on the hill. So they would be able to get some service carrier information. But Don did so many other things, via the social medias and, through the carrier information, you're not going to get that. So they definitely need to be able to get in and look at his phone. So you have the issue with no back door on the Apple for law enforcement to come in and take a look at stuff. So you have the only remaining feasible copy that wouldn't fall underneath of they wouldn't have to subpoena Sandman stuff. He could just bring it right in and give it to him.
Right. What does he have to, you know what I'm saying? What he doesn't, just because he's a media advisor, it doesn't give him like any type of privilege, like attorney-client privilege type thing.
No, and I explained to him,
he would be just as implicated, especially if he's
absolutely
downloading the phone.
You don't know what Don looked at. Don could have been looking at all sorts of unsavory things, and just the backup of that data to your computer, your personal computer, is the exact way that kitty images get moved and stuff, right? Like there's not going to be a pass for moving Don's stuff to your computer and not turning it in. You need to turn it in.
Right. Yeah.
Do the right thing, Tim. Turn it in.
Now, but I wonder if they could be implicated if there turns out to not be anything on the phone.
Well, I mean, you still have an issue with this handling of the evidence, which is it's still obstructive in its very design, right? Like,
but I feel like that would only apply. And now, morally, as far as you and I are concerned, and most of the people in this chat, yeah, like that's a shitty thing to fucking do.
Absolutely.
But is it illegal if there's no evidence on the phone? Can it actually be tampering with evidence when there's actually no evidence? You know what I mean?
First you have to arrive at a spot where you firmly feel confident that everything that's on the phone was what was always on the phone.
Right.
So, in terms of looking at the architecture straight from the phone or from a backup, the backup certainly is going to be different. He even stated that the backup was different. Certain things didn't make the move over. So yes, or things could have moved over that it's just a hard situation. But either way, there is potential very time sensitive data. Now, to me, also you could start to deduce that the fact that no one felt it was an emergent situation to move this phone over. Does that mean people think that she's not alive? Because I think everything could still, we need to look at it like everything is still time sensitive. Like, like she needs her last breath of air now, today, right? Like it's running out today.
Right.
And to sit on stuff
To sit on anything is fucked up.
is
Like,
to
yeah.
continue the suffrage for the girl potentially.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because, like you said, socks not in the box. I
That's
mean,
it. Socks, not a
she's,
box.
you know, I have to hope, and this is what makes this so tragic, is the chances of her not being in one of, if not the worst possible situation right now, is slim to none. The
Statistically, it
the
won.
chances, right? Like the
Absolutely.
chances of her being with a family that's caring for her, you know, is just so slim.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that
But
that 48-hour law, like it's, or 48-hour ideology, is a thing for a reason. Like, it's even more time sensitive than a murder with children, because after 3 hours, after
well, because they could
six
still be
hours,
alive, right? You
absolutely.
still have a chance to save their life. And this is what I was getting at, is it's it's so tragic and so ugly that, and this is why guys like you and me are so passionate about it. And people like 10 to Life are so passionate about it. Stephanie Harlow is so passionate about it. Not that I'm comparing myself to them, but what I'm saying is, the reason why we're so passionate about this is because it's so tragic to have to face the fact that we're hoping for the just the chance that she's alive.
Hoping for a
I
miracle,
I
Will.
that yeah, it's so fucked up that I am sitting here right now wishing that she's alive, to the point to where if she's having the worst things happen to her in the world right now, it's better than her not being alive. Right. And that
Yeah.
sucks that you have to like face that in your mind,
It,
because
it we all have to face it.
at
It's
least
it's
if she's found right now, and if she's gone through hell, all this time, then there's still a chance to, give her therapy, give her, put her in a good home, with people, and just make sure that she's going to be okay. And she'll have a chance, to grow up. She'll still have this trauma, but maybe she'll be able to learn how to cope with it and grow up functional. There's
absolutely.
that chance. And so it's just so sad that I could sit here and be like, God, even though the worst possible things are happening to this little girl right now, if she's alive, the chances of that are so great that I'll take that as long as she's still alive. It's
I look to my mom for a lot of philosophical advice, in the way that I should handle myself. And I asked my mom, I was like, because my mom, she knows as much about this case as I do. My mom knows more than a lot of these pro web sleuthers on YouTube. But I asked my mom, I said, knowing what you know, Mom, if I was that child, what would you wish for me? And she said, I would wish for you to be with Jesus. Right? Like the idea
well,
of,
see, I would rather die than go through whatever the horrible things my imagination could
for
conjure up
sure.
that I'd be trying to force out of my head. I would be I would rather die than that, but at the same time, I'm also not a 5-year-old kid
Correct.
or a 6-year-old kid, sorry, where I could have a chance to be fixed. I could have a chance
Right.
to learn how to cope with this trauma. I could have a chance to use this trauma and this experience to mold me, give me strength to take on
Be the
the other,
accelerant.
because you're never going to go through anything worse than that. You know what I
Correct.
mean? So like now,
Hopefully.
yeah. So if you can be trained with the right guidance to deal with life and deal with that and turn that into something that can make you positive,
I mean, that's, you see it all day, every day. You hear of these powerful men and women in the world that were marginalized as youngsters, and they let that be the catalyst to propel them into greatness. And then you have the darker side of that coin, and those are the ones that don't, and they live a life of torment and suffrage and brokenness, and so you start looking at it's the terminology a bad save, right? It's
Right.
in the medical world is, you save somebody, but they're a vegetable, only to be turned off on a machine, a year later or whatever. Is it necessary suffrage?
No, I mean, it's definitely not. None of this should have happened to her, but it's just I can't help when I find myself thinking about this case. I'm just like, there's no chance that I can imagine. There's such a slim, like, I mean, hair of a chance that she's with, unless she was sold to somebody who just can't get approved for adoption. But I mean, you only see that in the movies. Sometimes they don't even make
Right.
that many movies about shit like that. You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
that idea is like razor blades in the candy at Halloween. Like
Right,
it may have
exactly.
happened a few times, and
But
it's
the
more of an urban
likelihood,
myth. It's
right,
low,
the
very low.
likelihood is that she was sold, to some shady people. If she was sold, the likelihood is that she, and I'm talking based on, whether or not, I'm not talking about, I'm taking Candace and Don out of the scenario right now. I'm saying, uh, what we would hope for as far as her being alive is that some really fucked up person took her, and and is keeping her alive, and that hopefully they can be found, that she could be found by law enforcement, and then start living a path of learning, start living a path of healing, uh
Absolutely.
hopefully. And it's just so sad that that's the best that we can hope for. That's what
And
makes it so tragic.
absolutely, there's yet there's a potential trickle down economic of the whole thing, that with as much stuff is happening in the Rogersville, Kingsport area around there, if Don and Candace aren't involved, you have to stretch your mind to think about some sort of serial offender, like someone that is involved in a series of different crimes, not necessarily just abductions, but, a serial offender.
Right.
And those are everywhere in the world. So, it's not, it's not impossible. Now, I'll also tell you that we know, like typically in serial murder cases, you'll hear of cases like the Long Island serial killer. Like there's a running theory of particular crimes that go unsolved, that they have to factor in a rogue cop. Like, who knows how to get away with stuff. Now, I'm not saying at all that this is the situation in Tennessee, but anytime something goes sort of unfettered, then you just YouTube search cops with inappropriate behavior, and the thing never stops. It keeps going and
Yeah.
going and going and going. And
Yeah.
so it's a very real scenario that once a crime goes so far unsolved, the ideology that a rogue police officer is in the play, you have to look at it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm no stranger to that. I've seen, and I've shown, police misconduct, to say the
Every
least.
day, Will. Every
And
day.
on a case that I was covering, that I got fucking doxxed over, that all kinds of shit happened. And it was amazing. It's that something about YouTube that will never ever, this is a little off the subject, but there's this thing about YouTube that never ever stops shocking me, is when you put receipts out there. Like, you show it, you explain it, you walk people through the receipt, and then they still are like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like,
That's either denial or an inability to accept things,
sure.
right?
And it's just so crazy how much on a mass level that happens, where people just don't want to hear, and it's just ignorance. Like, look at Dolly Vision's dumbass in here, right?
Dude.
Like, that guy's a fucking jackass, bro. Like, and
Yeah,
I'm not
man.
even gonna hold back from that. Like, that guy has earned every reason to be referred to as a jackass.
Absolutely,
Like,
bro.
he came up here and he just called me a fucking clown, which is hilarious, because the dude literally, on his live, where he was talking about Upchurch and the shit with between me and him, after being on his channel, like, he he was sitting there and going, oh man, see, you're a buzzkill, man. This is supposed to be fun, blah blah blah. No, it's
This
not
ain't
supposed
fun.
to be fun. We're
No.
trying to find a little girl. We're trying to help law enforcement and control the environment as best as we can because of dipshits like you.
Dude, I remember when Dolly Vision made and I'm going to bring it back up because it's a high moment. I remember when Dolly Vision made one of those cute ass graphics he makes. And he put, what was it? Molly Go Lightly chasing Summer Wells with a chainsaw.
Yeah, totally inappropriate.
I mean, yeah, it's fun, right, Dolly?
I
Super
mean,
fun.
it's a missing child, like it's not. Again, like it's another example of people looking at these people involved without having any sense of empathy, because that's a lack of empathy, plain and simple.
That's it.
It's what it boils down to, because all you have to do
It's
is
a character
imagine
flaw.
that it's happening to your family. That's
It.
all you got to do. Imagine if it's
That's
happening to your family. And these people do not for 1 second take any time or any or push any effort to do this.
No, like,
and if they did, they would come to similar conclusions that we come to, which is like, wait till you know something.
yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's saying not to have an opinion, but understand when you have enough information to have a valid opinion and express it responsibly or not.
Absolutely. And I can even say that the situation with my sister's suicide happening during this case, it was detrimental to the way that I process things now. It was like, even though I love my sister, like I still allowed myself to be angry and pissy and talk shit about her to myself. And, it's all those things you got to do to get past the situation. And, I used the fuel from that and the negativity that I saw from my experience with my sister and let it fuel, my behavior here, like, man, like people could not understand what I was trying to do. And I think even now, people will never try to understand. Like I did what anyone could have done. And let me tell you what, let me expound on that, Will. What I did could have been so much easier if everyone was like me and you. If everyone was like me and you, this community would be a softer place for victims of crimes or alleged victims of crime to come here and receive the sort of, help and services and hope restored and all those things. And we could all get to the bottom of it quickly.
Dude, look at this shit, dude. The glare. I unsubscribed today because he called Summer cooked in car sauce child. Jesus, that sounds like some critical case shit right there.
Who Dolly said that?
Yeah, and
Man,
so she
so
she unsubscribed from him today.
Yeah, I also have a friend who has a child that has cancer. His name is DJ, and Dolly asked this lady if
I played the receipts on that.
Yeah,
I showed the receipts
man.
on that. Yeah,
He's a piece of shit, dude.
Yeah, dude's awful. Like, yeah, he
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know his type, man. And he's no different than any of these other idiots.
No.
And like he he sits there, and he's got these sunglasses on, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? I'm not criticizing him, but it comes off like he's arrogant about being an asshole.
Yeah, he seems like Sean Penn in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, dude.
But that dude even had a sense of empathy.
He sure
did. What I mean? Like, he wasn't an asshole. He was just a nice guy that wanted to eat pizza and didn't see anything wrong with it. Tasty waves, man. That's all,
Tasty waves.
But he's not. He didn't seem to me to be the type that's going to just start talking about. start a public access channel and start talking about a missing girl like it's funny, like it's a joke,
right? Or have anything to do with speaking about the dynamics.
And that's why I say his
crime,
audience is trash. That's why I say his audience is trash. That's why I say that the people who criticized me over what's his face Upchurch, I say they're trash too.
I mean, like if you're hassling me because a guy, is grooming millions of young Americans to be racist, like if you're upset because I'm speaking out about that, like Go back over there and listen to the Holler Boys.
Right.
And
Right. And a lot of a lot of criticism is, and I can explain this because I actually can't totally disagree with it, but a lot of my criticism on the Upchurch thing is, well, what does one have to do with the other? He's putting Summer's name out there, you're calling him a racist, what the hell, blah blah blah. Well, if you followed my channel, one of the reasons, now if I see all kinds of, it's because of you that I did that. It's because of, I'm talking to the people who are criticizing me for that. It's because of you that I did that. I would have never brought it the fuck up if you guys weren't fucking attacking me over it.
Right.
Because all I did was share why it was irresponsible, and then you guys just started, and I proved it. I explained,
but that makes them even madder, Will.
When that made them mad, so then they start attacking me. So my next move, and I've done this with everybody that I've ever criticized, I show receipts. I attack their character. That's what I do. I attack their credibility is what I do.
Right. That's right.
So if you're doing this shit that fucking is taunting a word, taking advantage of using a word that you shouldn't be using, and flaunting it because you got a card from a couple of other fellow rappers that happen to be African American. No, you didn't get the card from the entire race.
That's right.
So no, you don't get to do that. And that's why I question his character, because he doesn't think on that level.
No. And I wasn't, again, I wasn't so upset about the N-word more than I was the grooming, right? Like the young guy, he makes it look cool to other young Tennesseans and other, young folks that like that demographic of music. He's, it's,
and I'm not trashing the music, and I'm not trashing people who like the music.
It's parallel. It's like if the ISIS had a rapper, it'd be parallel to listening to that.
If one of my favorite artists did exactly what he did, I'd be like, I love this person, but they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And this is why. I would do the same exact thing. But people are staying loyal to him because they think for some reason he's gonna see their comment and be like, yeah, thank you. You know what I mean? And that's all it is.
That's it. It's a celebrity status, and it's
totally,
that's it, man. Like, do you see Kanye West jumping in chat groups, like trying to beat up regular YouTube superstars?
No.
Like, that's not what real celebrities do, bro. He's not a real celebrity.
A decent publicist, I would think, would advise them against that.
I'm sure him and his publicists are not best friends.
Probably not. Probably not. Because any publicist would say, well, what if you're wrong? Look at what you did. What if you're wrong? This is why I would advise you to not do what you did, is because what if it turns out that these people are totally innocent and you are bombarded with all of the other hatred and abuse that these people have put up with, and you just contributed to it with 2.8 million subscribers. How do you think that's going to look on you, dude?
Oh man,
it's my job as your publicist to advise you not to do that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't see how they would, how a decent publicist would not warn him of that. And because that's why I would think, because I'm sure that there are celebrities out there who are actually following these cases and are probably, who knows, watching YouTubers and just lurking. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because they actually care about missing people.
Absolutely.
So maybe there are, and they're lurking, but it's better just to fucking stay quiet and listen,
Absolutely. And you got to be able to stay in your lane, right? Like if you come here and you're like, okay, you got to understand what you're here for, right? Like, are you here to try to help the family restore hope? Are you here to help pass out flyers? Like, what are you here for? And once you determine what you're here for, well, then you can start to do your work. But you can't come here and render an opinion and then ask for help after that, right? It's not like, it's all backwards, right? You come in as a celebrity and you're like, please, somebody give me some context and all of that to catch me up. And that's not what we saw. Not only that, but I was very taken back by the fact that the Summer Wells video started out as a music promotion for him, right? Like, he was showing a new beat and talking about how to harmonize, and then it was some music promotion, and then it led to some Summer Wells talk.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
I just dropped. I had to fast forward to get to the Summerwell stuff because he was talking about something that he was currently mixing.
Correct.
So yeah, so don't tell me that it has nothing to do with with blowing himself up. Don't tell me that.
It's
Like,
tied to it
it's
directly.
well, because his job is being a public figure, and I'm not even faulting him for that. I'm not even faulting him for talking about the Summer Wells case. I'm faulting him for doing it irresponsibly and not doing his due diligence to do some research. And it doesn't take that much. And then I get criticized, like, well, why didn't you teach him? Why don't you show me? Like, dude, you're a grown man. I gotta tell you how to use Google.
Like
Are
nobody has
you
time for that,
serious?
man. Nobody has
Right.
time for
And
that.
don't click on YouTube, click on legitimate news sources. That you know what I mean? I gotta teach you to do that. Like
Yeah, I mean that's
common sense, man.
it is. Like you know, not only that, but it seems like, you know, you have all these resources. Like, man, call somebody and say, hey man, I'll pay you $1,000, catch me up on the Summer Wells case. Like, do it, bro. Like, it'd be worth it to you instead of coming here and, you know, looking like a regional celebrity. Like, you're not doing international celebrity stuff, bro.
I mean, and what's funny is I wish him all the success in the world. I honestly don't.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not hating on the fact he's obviously extremely talented, or else he wouldn't have the following that he has. You know, so I'm not doubting that in the slightest bit. What I'm saying is, you know, like you said, stay in your lane, or at least learn enough about it. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, a musician shouldn't start taking an interest in medicine. I'm saying that if you're going to practice medicine, go to medical school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or at least identify which end to put the medicine in.
Sure. That's all I'm saying, man. Like, I'm not shitting on the guy. And now I did dig at his character, but that's just because, of course, I'm going to attack his credibility through his character. If I'm trying to dig to, if you're putting me in a position as a follower of his to actually, you're putting me in a position to where I have to find out what is it about this guy that gets people to not even see. And I've always said this, anybody, and I've said this about YouTubers, but I assume it applies to any kind of art, right? The kind of anything that you would gain a following from. You're going to gain a following from like-minded people. And if you're capable of not being very responsible in being empathetic enough to understand that there is a seesaw type thing here when it comes to the truth, especially when you don't actually have a lot of information.
Absolutely.
And which, you know, it could go either way. And you know, it's just irresponsible. And we're talking about something as serious as a missing child. You know what I mean? And
correct. And I think that he, you know, in a scenario, you have to weigh the risk and the benefit, right? So was there a real life benefit for Upchurch involved in what he thought was awareness? Or
there could have been, is my
there
point.
could have been, yes. Or
that's all I said. That's all Crude AF said. That's all you said.
Or
you know?
Actually, did he taint the jury with his misinformation?
Exactly. Now, if he would have just been like, listen, and even put up a disclaimer and been like, listen, I'm just now starting to follow this, so I don't know. You know, I don't know. But see, even that's irresponsible. If he would have just said, these are the facts that I read off of the news, and this is my opinion based on that, you know,
absolutely.
Then maybe. But the fact is, and people have made comments like, you know, not even all of the YouTubers that are talking and only sticking to the facts, they're actually not helping the situation. You know what I mean? I'm not even really helping the situation if I'm, you know, talking about the case and I have to counter everything that somebody else does. So
it's
I have
circumvention.
To make, right. I have to make the decision. You know, do I just let these people spread information or misinformation, or do I counter it with correct information and reasons why their misinformation could be damaging?
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. So I can either do nothing and just let that shit go by and just let a jury be tainted, or, you know, but at the same time, at this point, I'm not doing anything to counter that to a jury necessarily.
Correct.
I'm not. You aren't. Nobody is.
No.
What we're doing though is hopefully getting people to look at this in a future tense, you know, and apply how that can be damaging and try not to do it the next case that comes around, or hopefully even better, stop doing it now when it comes to this case. You know,
Absolutely.
just stop.
We know that, you know, historically before the internet, you know,
I'm an influencer. We're social media influencers. That's what we are.
Absolutely.
So I feel I have to responsibly use my influence to be like, don't do that. Like,
sure.
See that shit going on over there? Don't do that shit.
Yeah, you don't.
This is why it's fucked up.
Yeah, you can still be useful even if you don't know what to do. Totally. If you're directing people what not to do, right?
Right.
I mean, it's always something that can be done here in a positive light. But I think, you know, definitely, you know, it's hard for people to compute why guys like me and Will get compassionate towards, you know, situations like the Upchurch. Like, you know, we can see, and it's, you know, like I'm sure it hits me for a different reason than it does Will, but when I see the people doing the things that they do and they've got the big platforms, it's so frustrating, man.
Totally.
It's so frustrating.
Like, because I'm like this, you know, like when I clicked on him, time. I was like this, like, please
do the right thing,
dude. And sure enough, I was like, fuck.
Yep.
You know, like, and it's crazy how you're rewarded too. You know, you've got JS for Justice who did the same thing, and she didn't even get big till after. Right. This is what's crazy about JS for Justice. He did this with the Shane Carey situation, right? With the Heidi Broussard case.
Yes.
And this dude, she led a full-on attack on this guy with her platform. And then he turned out to be completely innocent and distraught because his wife ended up being murdered, but his baby, by the grace of God, his infant, was returned to him safely.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. That never happens. Never happens.
No, it doesn't.
But also the circumstances never happen either. Right. So like, it was like her best friend who faked a pregnancy along with this woman and got close to her, and they were friends, and she faked the pregnancy. She like wore a baby bump and shit. You know, it's a Lifetime movie fucking dream. I'm shocked that a movie that hasn't been made yet. And then she ends up kidnapping Heidi Broussard, killing her, and then taking her baby to cover up her own lie for not having a baby.
And she was completely wrong about it.
What do you mean?
I mean, Jays for Justice covered it incompletely.
Oh,
correct.
She totally dragged Shane Carey, the boyfriend, the father of the kid. She dragged the shit out of this guy.
Damn.
Right? And had some fucking bullshit best friend, some girl that she was, I mean, you could just tell by her sitting up there and doing what she was doing, was not an actual friend to these people, because she was up there dragging the victim's boyfriend. You know what I'm saying?
Damn.
Right. So then what happens is, this is where you're going to love it. So what happens is, as this interview is going on live, as it's going on, the case breaks, right? People will start blowing up the chat going, oh my God, there's police activity involving the Heidi Broussard case. There's police activity. And then she starts searching for news stations and blah, blah, blah. And then she fucking, as it's breaking, she's playing it. Right. Cass saying, leave your mic alone. It doesn't bother me. I didn't even notice till she said something. So as the case is breaking, she's like covering it. Right. And has this phony, shitty friend. And then what happens is the news somehow gets a hold of the fact, because they're not going to sit here and listen to 3 hours of dragging the guy. No. They're going to watch the part where the case is breaking and she's covering it, right? So then the local news station reaches out to her, right? And then
oh no.
And then give her all this credit for covering it. You know, even though Shane Carey turned out to be innocent, they've decided to ignore the fact that she dragged his ass for 3 hours with some fucking shitty friend that is
How does
betraying the
that even
victim.
happen, dude?
Dude, it happened. I watched it happen. I was involved in it, and I was actually friends with Jay at the time. And then I saw this happening, and I was just like, I cannot agree with you on this. We don't have enough information to accuse this guy. We're not body language experts, because he did an interview where he's crying and begging and saying, I just don't know what happened, and blah, blah, blah. And he's sobbing, totally falling apart. And everybody's giving this guy shit, saying, no, look at him. He's guilty, blah, 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 blah. And
it's American culture, bro. Victim bashing culture.
totally. And it's all for the sake of what? Like, to be entertaining, to be shocking, to be, and so
Popular.
and I was saying this, and Jay is for Justice was in my chat, and I was like, Jay, I think what you're doing is wrong. I'm just saying. And then she was like, it's just called speculation. And then I'm like, no, there's responsible speculation and there's speculation, like, and this was 2 years ago. And
Speculation is the Bulls will beat the Bears will beat the Bengals by 7. That's speculation,
right? And so then what happens is, after her live, because when she was in my chat was before that live that I'm talking about that she did, that all that happened. But after her live, somebody that we were all friends with, because she was buddies with Dad with the phone too, who's a total tool. And I'll explain why. So DWAP, as he was called, I don't see him doing much now, but DWAP, as he's called, what he ends up doing is I ended up on his panel afterwards. And he even saw Jay's live, and he spoke out against it live. And, and you could tell he was in an awkward position. And I was too. And I was being respectful. I was just like, see, this is why we got to be super careful, man. We got to be super careful with this shit. We can't just jump to conclusions. This is a lesson to be learned right now, and
it's someone's life.
Right. And of course, I mean, I explained all that in so many lives prior to this happening. But then she ends up then after that live where DWAP like even got in on it after that live. And this was just before Christmas too. After that live, she emails me the next day, right? She emails me the next day with, are you sure you want to be my enemy?
Oh, wow.
And then I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. Like, first of all, why is she talking to me like she's fucking all of a sudden queen of the land? You know what I mean? And second of all, like, I mean, it's got nothing to do with me wanting to be your enemy. It's got something to do with me calling you out on something that is more important than you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is bigger than you.
Absolutely. She tried to make your belief system personal to her in an offensive way.
Yeah. Sorry if you're looking at it that way, because that's when our problem is your problem, not mine.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? Like, so then I get a text like on Christmas Eve from DWAP, right? Blah, blah, blah. Fuck this texting shit, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I could look it up right now, but I'd have to look for it. But he's like, she broke the case, and, you have no idea. You're still in YouTube diapers, and you don't know shit about how this is done, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't give a fuck about knowing how it's done. I'm seeing how it's done. If that's how it's done, then I've got more of a reason to speak out against it. You're not about to like back me down and make me go, oh, this is how it's done. Okay. No, I'm going to be like, well, if this is how it's done, it's fucked up. So I'm going to speak out. And so then, next thing you see, right, is you're going to love this. Next thing you see is DWAP with a JS for Justice hat going live. A JS for Justice baseball cap going live. And I mean, dude, I've never seen anybody so far up somebody's ass in my entire life, dude. And this dude, he's like, Jay, he's just talking how great JS for Justice is and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, yeah, because somebody in the chat's going to throw it in his face. And he's like, yeah, I said some things about, about a friend, and the people that I had on panel, they just didn't know that that's how me and my friend joke around. You know what I'm saying? They weren't getting the joke. They were talking serious, but I was joking, and they just don't understand our dynamic of humor, right? So basically what happened there, this is what happened. And I have no reason not to believe this, because then it's announced that JS for Justice is on Good Morning America, right? Her channel is featured on Good Morning America. Then Dateline calls her up and flies her out to New York to interview her regarding the case. Yeah. Like
what?
So
what actually happened?
She ended up blowing up, dude, for dragging an innocent man.
There's no motivation for her to ever do anything different, because she already knows.
She reaped the benefits from it. Yeah. She was rewarded, not condemned. Because
she's created an environment
I was a
where
guy
it's
with
cool.
1,000 subscribers at the time. You know what I mean? I was, I was nobody. I'm still, in comparison to her, nobody. She has what, like 20, 30,000 subscribers, something like that, maybe even more.
60,000, I think. 60.
Goddamn. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And why? Because she knows that doing that shit will get you rewarded. Absolutely. It won't. She has no. She's sitting there thinking like, she's thinking like somebody who dumps toxic chemicals. You know what I mean? Like,
they don't give a shit.
Yeah, like you don't understand. I'm a capitalist, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I'm not a bleeding heart. You know what I mean? I'm gonna.
I don't care what it looks like when I'm gone.
Right. I'm here to be successful. I don't care about all the other shit. I'm here to gain subscribers and make money.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this: outside of Upchurch, what is the one like what's the standout moment for you that was like the I can't take it moment? Like, this is too much.
What do you mean?
In Summer's case.
Oh, I don't remember exactly. I remember watching it, and I even went over it. But I actually did a live on it, where I was playing the video, and then, basically countering what he was saying and explaining why he was coming off like he didn't know anything at all, and why what he was doing was responsible. But there's not one particular thing that sticks out, because I only actually went over it on that one live after I had watched it, or at least most of it. I watched enough to see that he was not on the side of getting justice done and finding Summer. He was on the side of gaining publicity.
That's it. Just being on the side of they did it,
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, and that's a popular side. You don't have to show why you feel it. You just got to say it.
His agenda was spinning that narrative. Most definitely.
I agree wholeheartedly. I agree.
But yeah, I mean, so YouTubers are gonna YouTube, man. And I can only either call it out and always have content. You know what I mean?
It's always gonna be there.
And benefit from that, or I can at the same time hope that it actually wakes some people up. You know what I mean? And it makes a difference, and people realize, and it seems like that has happened, because I've been doing this since I started my channel for the most part, and I've grown. So I have no reason, like JS for Justice has no reason to change what she's doing. I have no reason to change what I've been doing.
And you know what? I tell you what, man, you definitely, the stuff that you're doing, it people notice it. I'll tell you that. Like, I noticed it very early on. I was like, this guy has, that ingredient that most people are lacking. You know what I mean? And so for anybody that's listening that would, they want to know what they can start a YouTube channel or how to do it. Like, if you do it like Will, like, you'll be successful.
Just understand that, like, you have a platform, you have people who follow you. And like, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be followed for being a genuine, kind person, and having people out there. Cause now, since I claim, cause I've done this to myself, I put myself in a position to claim that doing things a certain way If I do them differently, then I'm a hypocrite. So everything that I do on this channel, any success that I have on this channel rides on my integrity.
Absolutely.
At this point, I've put myself in that position.
Absolutely.
So now, I if I want to grow and I want to be successful, I just have to attract more people who think the same way.
Yeah.
Or people who think that they think the same way and then have enough guts to face themselves and realize that they haven't been. Because I was even like that. I mean, when I first got on with Critical K, I just saw it as, people are loving what we're talking about. There's people in this chat that are loving what we're saying, and we were feeding off each other as far as just being the not so norm of the way people thought. And I even justified how I was thinking in my head, but I was lacking a certain empathy when I was thinking of the Rucheks. I was focusing on things that I could criticize them for, rather than what I could,
prop them up with,
or not necessarily prop them up with, but educate myself as to how they're feeling and
that's
how they're being affected. And it took one of my own actions to realize that, because I posted this picture that I thought was already out there, first of all, and I'm not excusing, I'm just explaining how I think. And I made a meme with this picture because I thought it was out there, and it was shared in a private chat with K's people. And they shared it there. So I figured if they're sharing it, it's out there. You know what I mean? And I posted it in a chat in a group. And as soon as I did it, the very second that I did it, I deleted it. Like it didn't even, it was like post. And then I was like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I was like, this is not, it's not pertaining to the case. You see what I'm saying? That and that's why it was fucked up initially. And then I just started really thinking about it and going, oh my God, thinking of things that I was not thinking about before.
Those are powerful moments, aren't they?
It was probably my most powerful moment on YouTube. And then the only reason, and this is the thing, I got a lot of shit for this, and I can prove this, by the way, the only reason that information that I posted, that picture, is out there is because I took accountability for it and told them. I told the people in that chat there, and then they decided to judge me for it because they are crazy K followers, and I was trying to get K to sway away from the Watts case.
Right.
I was like, you don't see how crazy this is? Like, look what I just did. You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't even be talking about the Watts case anymore. I mean, he's pled guilty. It's done. And this was 3 years ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this was
well after the
2.5 years ago. Right. And so it was like a good year after the case was closed. So I was trying to use that, and then they saw that as an opportunity because these people were obsessed with the Watts case, and Kay wrenched these people who were obsessed with the Watts case. And so, they saw me as a threat because Kay's content might change.
Right.
Because they could not stop talking about the Watts case. And then they were like, oh my God, how could you have done that? Even though they're the ones sharing it in that chat, and their excuse is that it's a private chat, not giving a fuck that it could leak. But I'm the bad guy because I almost leaked it, which I didn't leak it, by the way. Kay leaked it, and I proved that too. But I only used the fact that I posted it to be like, listen, this is fucked up. This shit has nothing to do with the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that, I was just on my own, and I just started doing things my own way and just started, I'm going to start speaking up for victims because I just had fucking an epiphany on how fucked up this can be, and I don't want to be part of that.
Let me ask you another question. Have you ever felt like, as a male creator, have you ever felt like you've been victimized here?
No. Um, things have happened to me where I could consider myself victimized, but I choose not to feel like a victim or play victim or feel sorry for myself. Um, I will call people out for doing something and that it's fucked up, but I don't do pity streams. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like it's just things have yeah, I've been doxxed, I've been slandered to the degree of slander that is as worst as it can get. And my you could say that I'm a victim of abuse from my ex. She was abusive when we were together, and then she infiltrated this and then told a bunch of lies about me, and Kay released that information.
Same, same.
So I mean it, you know, and people don't see it like the majority of people, you can tell the difference of the quality of people in character, because people with common sense and people with character, what they end up doing is they go, well, wait a minute, they look at the big picture, they look at it from an aerial perspective, and
Correct.
they say, okay, well, the glare was just up here minding his own business, not talking about any of his personal shit. And then this person is going to release all this shit and then accuse him of all this with absolutely no proof, with proof that contradicts what she's saying, actually. And then, so which one is the abuser here? Which one is the
Right. They can't
you know
see
what
it.
I mean? Look at the actions.
Absolutely.
I'm just
Absolutely.
trying to be as far away from her and be left alone as I can. You know what I mean?
And it
So
keeps coming back.
right. A narcissistic, abusive person just fucking just goes after somebody and creates fucking, sock accounts and just
Well, I mean,
fucking,
anytime somebody has a problem with you online, they just resort back to that one thing, right?
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Right.
what they do.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what they do when they don't have an argument against what I'm talking about.
that's it. They just go back to a lie somebody told about you.
When I paint them into a corner, that's when they're like, okay, I'm digging into my pocket and, pulling out a gun.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, that's all you got. And
Absolutely.
that doesn't speak volumes to certain people, which is really funny. They just want the dirt and they go, oh my God. And then just because they didn't like one thing that I might have said, they want to believe every horrible thing they want to hear that, that they hear about me, and those are people that I don't want even
Around.
involved. Like, dude,
Yeah.
like I didn't lose over 100 subscribers over the Ryan Upchurch thing. I spent as currency 100 or plus subscribers. I
mean,
bought something for my money.
You
I
got rid
bought
of
something for that.
You own that now. You don't have to worry about that 100 bothering you.
Yeah, the fat cut itself, and I didn't even have to pick up a knife.
That's it, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's the American dream.
Totally. That's exactly right. I'm living the fucking dream. This
Yes,
is
you
why
are.
I don't consider this work. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, like when I hear Bullhorn Betty going, this is our job. This is our job. Like people hear genuine responsibility and an expression of it, they're willingly going to give you money. They're willingly going to help you. They're going to contribute to your channel.
Absolutely.
You're not going to go up there and beg for it.
They have a sense
and
of
then
ownership
call it
in
work. Right. And then exactly. And call it work and then try to make them feel obligated because you're up here like making what kind of sacrifice? Because what you're doing is you're proving that based on my philosophy of why this is work, why this is not considered work, is because I don't have to do shit. Like, it takes no effort for me to come up here and speak my genuine mind. I don't have to come up with lies. I don't have to cover up more lies. I don't have to, you know what I'm saying? I don't have to find the most controversial thing to say or do. I don't have to put myself through that. So therefore, this isn't work. This is just me talking to friends and how I feel about shit. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
And educating at the same time, man, because I know that a lot of people come across your channel and you genuinely instill a different ideology in them, or at least make them question their own, right?
Right.
Like,
I would definitely prefer to be looked at that way if that's the case. if that's the case, that's definitely the goal, is to just try to have you have an open perspective and see really how it's could be going to be beneficial as versus counterproductive or detrimental, I should say, to the victim or the victim's family.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to focus on, is just wait a second before you jump to that conclusion. Like there's all kinds of different perspectives. We don't have enough solid evidence yet, to make a determination. Like, think of yourself as a juror,
Right.
use your eyes.
And if you can't divorce yourself from bias, then act like a cop.
Right.
Right. Like
At
we all
least.
played cops
At
and
least.
robbers growing
Right.
up. Like, yeah, but play a cop, right? Like
At least look at the
act
evidence.
like a cop would.
Right. Look at the evidence, and act like a DA on TV would. On SVU. SVU is one of my favorite shows. And
Yeah, act like
I
Scully
hear it
or
all
Mulder.
the time. The DA is always like, okay, well, I can't have you pick them up, because they have to have when they're building a case, they have to have the DA's okay to pick up the perp. And he's like, well, this is why, because if I get him in a courtroom and then his lawyer says this and this, he's going to get it thrown out. So go
then we
get
can't
me,
come back.
Yeah, go get me more evidence. That's what they
Absolutely.
always tell. They always tell the detectives, go get me more evidence. That's not enough.
Absolutely. And that's when you want that shotgun trial that's just going to scatter and touch everything, everything has to be touched. And if I could, Will, I'd like to take a moment to appeal to Candace Wells and the Sandman. Like, you guys potentially have information on that phone. I plead to you to bring that information to the TBI. I would ask that you bypass Hawkins County altogether, and you just do what's right. Because let's just be real. Even if there's nothing on the phone that implicates anyone, certainly bringing forth this information and being cooperative will go a whole long way.
And it'll go a long way in public opinion too. Because
Absolutely.
right now the shift is going to the wrong side. It's going to the wrong place. The pivot, on the spectrum is going back. So, it would benefit them as far as, because they obviously care what the public thinks. So if you care what the public thinks, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Benny.
No.
We got to make this point before I forget, because I'm brain fart central. It's clear that they care about public opinion. This would go a long way by showing that cooperation.
Absolutely. I mean, it would completely, in my opinion, it would completely reverse, what Sheriff Lawson said when he said they're being uncooperative. You could do this thing and you could build a lot of trust with the TBI. At this point, you're not worried about appeasing Sheriff Lawson. You've got bigger fish you need to attend to. So, you people, one of you needs to do the right thing. And I would say at this point, between Candace and Sandman, there should be a real race to see who can get it there first.
Exactly. Who can get it there first? Most definitely.
Yep.
Like, it should be, this is my number one priority right now.
Finding this girl. Like, even if, even if it's damning to Donald Wells, it's going to be beautiful for Summer Wells if they're involved.
Well, it's going to be as good as it can be with what we know so far for Summer Wells, at least.
Absolutely.
At least.
Absolutely.
I mean, we don't know the condition of her right now, and we don't, and that's the sad, scary thing is just, when we don't have answers, our imaginations tend to go into horrible places, whether we block them or not. When you really care about this child's well-being, you're just, you're going to use those possibilities to motivate you to doing the right thing for this child.
Absolutely. To really expound on the dynamic of, child offenders, or rather adults that offend against children. Historically, it's the crime of least resistance, right? Like it's the fledgling deal where, maybe these people start by sharing images because that seems like a victimless crime. But typically, when someone wants to offend against a child, there's the real fantasy of being able to do it over and over and over. So people don't take children. This scenario is dynamic because people don't take children. I mean, when you take a child, you either have to feed it and clothe it and abuse it and whatever else is happening to it, or you have to use the child. You have to utilize the child in the way that you had, initially designed, and then you have to distance yourself from your deed. And the way that you distance yourself in most cases is at the child's extreme detriment.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Now, Julie Witcherman just showed up in my chat. Julie Witcherman, I saw you. I saw you. I like you, but have some conviction behind your words because I saw you jumping on that whole Upchurch bandwagon, talking trash. I saw you.
Well, and I think that everyone should really, one of the things that I realize happens is that people, when they get treble hooked by their compassions and their convictions, they go places and they think that all of this is compartmentalized and that it's not public and that we can't see it as creators and as other mindful and observant friends and subscribers. This stuff isn't happening in a vacuum. We can see, you know, guys like me and Glare, and we have networks built that, go around looking for this sort of stuff because it's important to know who is around and who's doing what, because when you're on a mission, you're only as good as the weakest person around you. So, I would just ask that person to completely check your convictions. You know what I mean? Are you here for Upchurch's opinion, or are you here to find Summer Wells?
Right. What takes precedence? And at least admit it if it's the truth. You know what I mean? That's fine. But don't sit here and act like you care about a missing child when you don't even think that he could possibly do damage with that video that he released.
Absolutely.
Sammy Johnson says, let me ask this question. If content on the phone was drug dealing, prostitution, or affairs on it, would it work against Don? Potentially, sure. I mean, it's his phone.
Absolutely. Now, what would it be? Is it inculpatory or exculpatory? Is there a real need for that to be connected to any of this? If they can take these numbers of these people that are in this phone and involved in this underworld, and they can completely scour those folks' background and, essentially corroborate to themselves that they're excluded, then that in itself is it's mountains of information. Now, if some of that stuff is investigated and it leads to a tie to Summer Wells, all of that stuff will work against Don. All of it.
Yeah. I mean, anything that they're trying to hide from the cops in that phone is likely going to work against Don in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily as far as what happened to Summer. Not necessarily. It's just something that could add on to his time because he's currently in jail for certain charges. But the thing is, unless they get a warrant for the phone. Now, this is the thing is if they get a warrant for, I wonder about this. If they get a warrant for the phone and it obviously has to pertain to a particular investigation. So if they get a warrant for Don's phone, it's going to be for information on potential information on what happened to Summer. Now,
absolutely.
Now, I'm wondering if they find things regarding something unrelated, but still illegal and still a violation of his probation. Can he still be charged with that? Would the warrant apply? You know what I mean?
It
Since
would.
It's an unrelated case. Can he still be charged for those things?
I mean, obviously, anything that the man would be involved in the underworld, if it met a felonious threshold, in my opinion, they're wanting to build a case on Don.
But
So
again, I wonder if a defense attorney, but what I'm saying is if it has nothing to do with, well, maybe, okay, if they're trying to build a case or maybe put pressure on him,
absolutely,
if they find any reason that they can keep him in jail and they suspect him and they think that keeping him in jail longer is going to break him, I could see them using something else unrelated that he could be charged with to keep him in jail and keep the
yeah,
pressure
to
on him.
fulcrum him.
Sure.
He owes the state 2 years on the gun charge, Jazz. So he, in terms of how much time, like he essentially, they what did they give him, 11 months and 29 days. He owes them another year, so it's not like he's going to get out of jail and be off probation.
See, in
um,
theory, that's what I thought, Justice Law. I'm assuming you're an attorney or at least someone who works with an attorney. Um, but you're saying none of that is relevant, so it's not evidence. That's what I'm saying. Like, in theory, that's what I came to, is just like, I don't see how they could use that against him. I don't see how a defense attorney couldn't just be like, okay, so the
no
warrant
it,
was
it
what the purpose of the warrant was to find evidence regarding the location of a missing child. But if it's a drug charge, I don't see how that's relevant. I want that thrown out because
yeah,
that's not evidence of that crime because you searched it under different circumstances.
yeah, right. And in my opinion, and this is completely my opinion, I mean, just from what we can see publicly, Don is connected to an underworld current, that that there could potentially be federal violations on his phone that wouldn't have anything to do with this case per se,
But it could
but it could open up something different.
right. What it could do is open up more possibilities as to what may have happened to Summer. Reason
Absolutely.
reason to investigate, and a new avenue to investigate regarding Summer's case.
Absolutely. Now, the issue for me, and maybe Justice for Law knows, in terms of validating the evidence that could potentially be in the phone, do they need it straight from the phone? Or we have to remember there's this ace in the hole with Sandman. Like, he has a backup of the phone. Now, that backup isn't going to be subject to the same terms of service and security as the Apple, right? Like, you're going to be able to fulcrum Sandman, I believe, into giving the information in before you would Candace.
What if they already deleted everything in the phone and in the backup?
That would be a problem. So,
And what would be his purpose in the backup? I was asking myself this last night. What would be the purpose in backing it up? Could it be for leverage?
well,
I mean, what's
initially,
the motive behind backing it up? What's the rationale for it? You see what I'm
his
saying?
his rationale that he explained to me
I,
was
I,
that
I
he
would be
was
trying to get rid of the evidence, not make more of it,
correct. The rationale was for he wanted the pictures and the different things that Don had taken pictures of and made videos of since he had that phone. And I explained to Sam, and I'm like, listen, there was many ways you could have just extracted just the photos and just the videos, and it would show that in the architecture of the phone. I said,
maybe he
it,
downloaded it just to examine it and put a second pair of eyes on it to see if there was something incriminating in favor, as a favor to Don and Candace.
well, then TBI should have seen it, and they should have made that determination.
Right.
And
I mean,
it,
that
it
shit happens, dude. That's what lost the Casey Anthony case, dude. That's exactly what happened. Like, if it was later found out, because the prosecution dropped the ball. The bottom line is, we always talk about this, but it merits acknowledgement again. A reminder that it's up to the prosecution to prove their case, not the defense. To disprove it,
absolutely.
just to create doubt and poke holes in it and be like, dude, there's no, that's not evidence,
No, and you have to
So,
remember that when it's criminal trial, you have essentially a whole team of law enforcement professionals and civil servants that are working together to try to throw you away under the jail. When it's the criminal defense, it's a lot of times a very small team, or maybe just even one representative. And so
Unless you're OJ.
unless
Um,
you're OJ, right?
right.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, though, is uh, I feel like I feel like if they're
Thank you, Justice, for that.
let me see, let me read that. Anything found on phone unrelated would not be used to prosecute, but would be used to unravel other issues underground behind scenes. Right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's basically what we were just saying.
Yeah. No, but I thank you for clarifying, because I'm versed from sitting at the defendant table, and what I've procured, in educating myself about the law, outside of my own experiences. So it is great to have someone like you around that can really narrow in on those issues.
Oh yeah, like I'm dying to actually have. I need a civil attorney on here to discuss critical case lawsuit. Uh, I'm dying for that because it's hilarious so far. Like in theory, it's just the funniest shit that's going on right now. But I'm not an attorney. But I'd love to
Was
have
her for 10 mil or 1 mil?
10 mil.
10 mil. That's what I thought.
Yeah, 10.
I mean, that's shooting for the stars,
If it
and if
wasn't
you
her,
fall
I
short,
wouldn't be
you're on the
laughing.
moon.
Yeah, if it wasn't
Yeah.
her or Bullhorn Betty or Molly Lightly, I wouldn't even be laughing. Because it's just like, there's this little part of me that's like, she doesn't have $10 million. Like, she loses this case, she is
No.
fucked
For
for
life.
good. Yeah,
For
like
good. Yeah.
so I mean,
One thing I want to mention about the Summer Wells case, in the beginning, when I was caught in the true crime way of thinking, I was really drawn to the Delphi case, the Delphi girls, and it was, I felt the same frustration that a lot of people, carry from case to case. But to me, it was like they got to know something more, and I was like, if they just gave some more information, then potentially something can break. But the very reason why there's no manner of death, and no narrow in on the location, is because there has to be information involved in this that's not circumvented in a way that only the offender would know certain details. And you can qualify certain offenders through the interview processes and different investigative tools, to quantify that they are actually the only ones that know this information. It
this
couldn't
is
be known anywhere else.
this right here is a deal sealer right here. This is a great point. The chain of custody is busted with what Sandman did with backup. So it would be a bit problematic if they find something, would need to get independent evidence to prove this fact. So they'd have to get other evidence to back up that evidence. Like, so I lost Benny there for a second. I'm sure he's going to come back in just a second. But yeah, that's that right there is it. You know what I mean? That's another thing that the defense can do, is just say the chain of custody has been broken, you know? Right on. Right on. Yeah. I don't know if Benny's planning on coming back up, but I actually was about to wrap this up. But and yeah, sorry, I'm looking at that's Pendar. People still work 60 hours. Yeah. Oh, it totally is. Critical K is being sued for $10 million for she is now real quick. I got to address something. Mods, please don't. I mean, that person, all she said was that she loved Critical K. You're allowed to love Critical K. Maybe you'll learn something by watching, but yeah, I yeah, you're allowed to love Critical K. So mods, to be a little light. squeeze the trigger, be a little light with the trigger finger there, please. But yeah, Critical K is basically she's being sued for $10 million because there's a person who is basically suing her for slander because what she's known, it's the same lawsuit, Julie Witcherman. She's known for bashing victims. Appreciate that, Shimmer Soul. She's known for bashing victims and harassing them, and she's known for slandering them. And then she did this to the wrong person, and they decided to just take it legal. And she does not have an attorney, so she is outmanned right now. And her attempts to defend herself are just humorous right now. They're just funny. Like if you see the last, you can look at. I go over her motion to dismiss the case, and it's just that was my favorite part of my day. Natalie Holloway. Okay. Thank you so much, Jackie Jude. Well, yeah, guys, I am going to totally wrap this up. I am feeling awful right now, but always a stimulating conversation with Benny. So it was great enough to where it took my mind off of how I was feeling. But and here he is again, real quick, so we can sign off properly. Sorry, bro. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I was just saying I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and I'm feeling awful, like I've got this bad flu. And like here, talking with you and having this conversation was served in keeping my mind off of it. So I'm grateful to you for that. I'm grateful to you for taking your time and coming up here and talking. And thank you for being such a great sport for the curveballs I've sent you. I threw you tonight. That was very, very classy of you to do so. So I appreciate that and being super cool about that. Anyways, man. Yeah, there you are. Were you able to hear what I just said?
No, can you say it again? I'm sorry. I had the robot and then the one phone died and I'm on the other phone now.
Oh, Mr. Nuts in the house. What's up, dude? You're late, man. Yeah, I'm about to. But no, I was saying I appreciate you coming up here. I appreciate you taking my mind off of being sick. I appreciate and I really appreciate you being a great sport about the curveballs I had to throw you there a couple times.
Man, it is what it is, bro. I'm an open book.
You were super classy about it, man, and I really appreciate that, dude. Giants 10, I don't know. Burnt Toast usually goes live on Mondays and Thursdays. So maybe Thursday. I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, man, thank you so much for everything tonight, man. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I'd if you're down for it, I'd like to have you on maybe tomorrow night if it's cool.
Yeah, if I can do that, I'll try. I just got to make sure that everything is copacetic here, and I'll have the privacy and the so that it could be quality.
Absolutely,
live,
sir.
And I could be focused. But yeah, and if I'm feeling better as well, hopefully this didn't put me in a position where I'm going to feel worse. I probably should have been in bed resting, but this is too important. So
prayers in a speedy recovery, bro.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I took a COVID test and it came out negative. So it's just a matter of just rest and fluids and then going back to the gym.
There you go, man.
But anyway, man, thanks a lot, dude.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me, Mr. Will.
All right, we'll see you next time.
God bless, bro.
All right, guys, I really appreciate you. Love you, and we will do this again very, very soon.